Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the Luffy Fanfics. Back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What if Luffy possessed Sungod Haki? Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. The past who knows how many hours have been nothing but a nightmare. From the tense hours before his execution, to seeing his captain stabbed in the back and wounded, all because of him. This is everything Ace has never wanted to happen again. This is Grey Terminal and Sabo's death all over again. This is helplessness and people dying because of him, because he couldn't get past his foolish pride, because he couldn't be reasonable, or better yet, never have existed, never have ruined anything. This is a nightmare. This is worse than a nightmare, because it's real. Ace looks over Marineford's battlefield, Marineford's graveyard, wishing and begging for it to end, or for him to end, and nobody answers him. Luffy bleeds, and his crew dies, and his father coughs up blood, and nothing ends, nothing stops, everything goes on until Ace can feel the guilt and sorrow blocking his throat so tight it takes him all he has not to collapse. This all his fault, this is all because of him. This wouldn't have happened without him, this shouldn't have happened, but it is happening, and they're all fighting over him, so the only thing that can stop it is him dying. So when Sengoku orders his death, finally, Ace closes his eyes and bows his head and waits for it all to be over. Because him dying is the only way to fix this. Oh. Sengoku calls for Ace's death, and the entire battlefield freezes, for a single second. Then everyone starts to fight with renewed energy, satisfaction for the Marines, desperation for the pirates. The fight has been going forever, it looks like it's finally nearing its end. Whitebeard is in no shape to stop the blade swinging down, they have no other allies powerful enough, no one is close enough. It's going to end. Or so everyone thinks, until Monkey D. Luffy screams, and the world stops. Sengoku should have expected it. His attention, his observations Haki, had been entirely focused on Whitebeard. There is nothing more dangerous than a father pushed to his last resorts, and Sengoku had been aware of it. He hadn't cared for anyone else, not the insignificant threats battling his men below, not his admirals scattered all over the battlefield, not the warlord's dances of betrayal and destruction. Not Garp's grief, sharp and anguished at his side. Monkey D. Luffy orders, and they are crushed under his panic and fury. Bodies drop to the floor, allies and enemies alike. Sengoku narrows his eyes, and, like every other user on the battlefield, focuses his armaments Haki around himself to reject the wave coming at him. He belatedly focuses some of his observations Haki towards the boy, and keeps most of it towards Whitebeard's silhouette. One surprise is enough. He doesn't look at his side. The executioners were low-ranks Marines, men picked out because they had no family to be killed as revenge, no hope at becoming powerful enough to matter. Chosen just because their death would, ultimately, not matter one bit. There's no way they resisted this. Gold Ace is still alive, he's powerful enough to register on his observations Haki, even focused elsewhere. He won't survive long, he's already given up. Sengoku doesn't have to care about him. He looks ahead instead of right in front of him, planning for the future, curses Garp's bloodline, Roger's bloodline, Whitebeard's foolish sentimentality, and doesn't realize his mistake, until the sharp cut of seastone-infused blades never comes. Luffy screams, or begs, or demands, whichever. The world stops to listen to him, because of course it does, because it's Luffy asking, and Ace feels his eyes widen. He stares, pays no attention to the body falling beside him. Wait. Body? Singular? Please don't make me regret this more than I already am, says a woman's voice. And then his HNDCFFS unlock, and Ace is pushed off the execution platform. Okay, so maybe Nami is as stupid as the rest of her crew. Maybe Usopp's the sensible one. Usopp wouldn't have done this. Usopp would not have snuck into Marineford, infiltrated an organization their captain technically also declared war on about 2 months ago, and then decided to stand right next to the Marines' fleet admiral while planning to free his most prized prisoner. Usopp definitely would have done this. It's for Luffy, what does she expect? This isn't even the most stupid thing Nami's ever done, because she trusted Arlong would keep his word for years. This is not the weirdest thing she's ever done, because she was almost married to an invisible zombie lion man not a month ago. This is probably the most terrifying thing she's ever done, but then again her mother was killed in front of her eyes when she was little, so maybe not. This is definitely the most dangerous thing she's ever done, and she doesn't even have her crew by her side. At least at Eni's lobby, she had Luffy to guide her, and her crewmates to draw strength from, and Robin's tears to draw hate toward the world government from. Now, all she has is the memory of Luffy's smile as he talked with Ace, all she has is the knowledge of how she would feel if Nojiko was killed, all she has is her loyalty towards her captain and that unrelenting compassion she never managed to hide that well. It's not much, but it's enough. She's going to save Portgasdeet Ace or die trying. Probably more of the latter than the former. Sounds like a plan, right? Oh. Getting to Ace's execution platform is surprisingly easy. Stealing the keys to his HNDCFFS is even easier. It involves knocking someone out, locking him into a random room, and being very thankful for her Mirage Tempo, and then she's one of the executioners scheduled to kill Portgasdeet Ace. Easy. Standing in front of the Marine's fleet admiral and not dying of fear is impossible. Fortunately, her shaking knees do not seem to register very high on the commanding officer's list of problems. Someone, an admiral? A vice admiral? A commodore, leads her and her partner to the execution platform, and Sengoku raises an eyebrow at them, says, "I expect you to do your job perfectly, executioners," and immediately dismisses them to go tend to some other business. Nami steps forward, towards Ace, does not say anything because she has no idea if he'd have the same reaction as Luffy would and she just cannot risk it, and turns back towards the other executioner. "Maybe we should have gotten water. It doesn't start until like 5 or 4 hours. Right, says the man, clearly as terrified as she is and much less used to not showing it. He's looking at the empty water in front of them like it's about to leap out of the bay and spontaneously drown him. He's also looking at Ace like the blood of Gold Roger is going to poison him at a distance. Nami despises him. Right, I should go get that. I mean, you're right, no point just standing here, not like we need to kill him that soon. I mean, we could, and we will eventually, but dash. Go, says Nami. I'll watch him, and then, we'll exchange, yeah? I mean, he's cuffed, right? What can happen? The guy nods, and finally disappears from the platform. Nami does not let out a sigh of relief because that would be a very embarrassing way to get caught. She kneels behind Ace. He hasn't opened his eyes or given any sign he's heard anything that happened since Nami came up. As she pretends to tighten his cuffs, or check them, or whatever, she takes out her Climatact, creates the quickest and most crucial Mirage Tempo of her entire life, probably, then 3 or 4 more on top of it for good measure, and unlocks the manacles just enough that she'll just have to shove a hairpin in there later to free him. Technically, Ace is still very solidly attached, and he can strain against the chains all he wants, nothing will happen. If Nami does it, however. That done, she backs away hurriedly, readjusts her hat, hopes her Mirage Tempo is holding up, and tries not to die of stress. And then she waits. Oh. Waiting turns out to be the most stressful part of the operation. At one point, the other guy returns, looking no more reassured, and nods towards her. She nods back, climbs down the platform, wanders around in Marineford like she knows what she's doing, and resists the persistent urge to lock herself in a room and hyperventilate. She redoes her Mirage Tempo, even if it hadn't started to dissipate at all. Eventually, she goes back up, distracts the other executioner enough to cast like 5 other Mirage Tempo just in case, and then Sengoku comes back up. And then Whitebeard arrives. And then the battle starts. She watches on, equally amazed at the power as she is horrified by the violence. She watches, and listens to Ace beg for Whitebeard to give up on him. She hears Whitebeard refuse. She pointedly does not think of Belmer's death. She wishes she had a marine flag to burn. Her captain falls from the sky, battered and bruised and ready to save what matters to him, and she remembers not to fall to her knees in relief at the last second only. Her captain fights, because that's what he does, and she focuses solely on him and watches as he unrelentingly advances. How hurt is he? Where did he come from? Is that Crocodile? And Buggy? She watches on, and waits for the right moment, and almost frees Ace 100 times, always holding off at the last second because their allies are just too far away, and the Marines too numerous. Once they get closer, she tells herself, and pointedly does not think of the fact that the second Sengoku orders for the blades to fall, she'll have no choice but to do it. And then, well, Sengoku orders for the blades to fall. No more delaying possible. Nami raises her blade. Prays to whoever is listening. Steps on the manacles just enough to unlock them, vaguely registers that the other executioners and the majority of the soldiers below just collapsed. Whispers, "Please don't make me regret this more than I already am." Pushes the Marine's most prized prisoner and the sole reason for the war happening in front of her off the execution platform. And jumps off after him. What the F- is Ace's first and most distinct thought. What the F- is his second. Only then does his body registers that he's falling towards a certain death, and also, that he's not the only one falling. One of his executioners, the one that had tightened his HNDCFFS while shaking all the while earlier, who is apparently suddenly a woman and also not wearing a marine uniform, is right there with him, and also screaming. Protect me, protect me, protect me, I can't survive that. She yells. Well, she just saved his life. The least he can do is return the favor. Oh. Noticing that one of his no-name executioners just resisted Monkey D. Luffy's wave of Conqueror's Haki and then freed his prisoner might be the thing that finally gives Sengoku a heart attack. How? He screams at the ball of fire that presumably contains both Fire Fist Ace and whoever the F is going to die a most violent death. Ace! Screams the rest of the battlefield, and, right. The rest of the battlefield, that's what he should focus on, because this is no doubt one of Whitebeard's numerous tricks. But how? They had taken care to know every single Whitebeard crew member or ally. They had kept a tight eye on their ranks, had not accepted any new Marine, had kept Marineford on lockdown for months before the war. Short of someone dropping from the sky, invisible, there is no way anyone could have infiltrated the headquarters. The battlefield is busy staring at the flaming silhouette of Whitebeard's 2nd Division commander, who is presently busy reminding everyone why he's a division commander while also protecting the cowering silhouette behind him. On top of that, the soldiers knocked by the Conqueror's Haki aren't waking up yet, so that means that he has considerably fewer enemies than he would have had 10 minutes ago. Whitebeard, from very far away, starts to laugh out loud. Sengoku is going to kill somebody. Oh. Edward Newgate, in his life, is very rarely as surprised as he is now. Watching Red Hair's brat knock out half of the battlefield, including his own sons, does the kid have no control, had already been a shock, if a somewhat expected one. Because after all that was Red Hair's brat, and Edward had already decided that for once the man had made a good decision choosing that one as successor. Watching Ace finally get away from the platform and start fighting again is delightful. Seeing Sengoku get completely blindsided is the best thing he's seen in a long time. He starts to laugh out loud, and Marco, hovering by his side, follows him. The high of victory doesn't last long, but enough for him to get over his most recent bout of illness. Good, he grins, and Marco turns towards him to share the same elated smile. Tell Ace it's time to come home, everyone. Edward Newgate hasn't had such a good surprise in a long time. Oh. Holy F, holy F, holy F, that was terrifying, breathes Nami as she touches the ground without dying, which is a good surprise. We're running. Ace grins at her. Thanks for the help, he says nonchalantly, as if Nami didn't just save his life. Can you fight? Nope. Nope, there's no way I can fight anyone here. I can technically fight, but if I fight anyone here I will die, thinks Nami. If worst comes to worst, maybe? She squeaks instead. They're still engulfed in an inferno of flames, and Ace nods and directs his attention elsewhere for a moment. Okay. He grins fiercely. Obviously we're going to have to talk later, but until we get to my crew, I suggest that you hide behind me, and I fight, and we run. Don't worry, I'm a good fighter, I should be able to avoid hitting you. Good, says Nami. So we run, now? Ace's smile turns sharper. You run. I fight. Nami's okay with that. Oh. Monkey D. Garp is having a bad day. It's not the worst day, though it has the potential to become it. But it's not yet. Garp, snarls Sengoku. After them. Garp hesitates. Go. Garp jumps after his grandson. Fortunately, Ace is fast, and whoever is with him, not powerful enough to register on Garp's Haki, but apparently smart enough to disrupt the course of an entire war, is as fast as him. Also fortunately, the pirates have gained on the Marines quite a lot, and Ace probably doesn't have to run that long to reach his allies. Even more unfortunately, Garp has a second grandson made of rubber, who can jump very far away very fast. Garp has no desire to fight both of his grandsons, or even only one of his grandsons. Garp doesn't really have a choice. Monkey D. Garp is having a very bad day. Oh. Wait, says Buggy the Clown from very far away. I know that one dash. Ivankov has no idea what to expect from this war anymore. Someone breaking into Impel Down? Fine. That someone being Dragon's son? Why not? Dragon's son being Gold Ace's brother? Heard weirder. Seen weirder. Done weirder. Dragon's son being an impossibility that defied every logical odds and wouldn't listen to anyone? Honestly, it wasn't that surprising. Ivankov used to work with Dragon, and in that regard, he and his son are frighteningly similar. So they escape Impel Down, and rush into Marineford, okay. Luffy challenges Whitebeard the second he sees him, very bold decision but to be expected from what Ivankov knows of Luffy. Whitebeard doesn't kill Luffy on the spot, a welcome surprise. They have to fight Kuma. Ivankov's out of the loop, and they need to not be out of the loop, and to talk to Dragon, and they need to do it right now. Why did they have to fight Kuma? What are pacifistas? What happened to Kuma? Whitebeard gets stabbed. Well, those are pirates, after all, betrayal is to be expected, isn't it? Even in a crew like Whitebeard's. Whitebeard's forgive Squard. None of Ivankov's business. Luffy unleashes Conqueror's Haki. What the F dash? Ace gets freed by one of the executioners. What the F dash? Luffy rushes towards his brother without waiting for anyone, and turns towards the executioner, and the woman calls Dragon's son, Captain. What the F dash? Oh. ACE, screams Luffy the second he's close enough for his brother to hear. Ace, you're here. Yeah, says Ace, grinning, knocking the Marines approaching with a blast of flames absent-mindedly. His expression changes suddenly. Luffy, what were you thinking? You're not even out of paradise yet. Where's your crew? How did you get here? Are you suicidal? You could have died. Luffy just grins. I had to save you, he explains, and rams his feet into the nearest pile of bodies, dodging Ace's fireball easily. You're my little brother, you don't save me. I save you, idiot. They said they were going to kill you, I had to come. Never do that again, orders Ace. Fighting admirals? And you didn't even save me, someone else did. Right, exclaims Luffy. Where are they? I should say thank you, that's what Makino said you had to do for Shanks. Ace turns away to check that his savior hasn't died yet, and finds her standing nearby, looking exhausted and like she's seen the first good thing of her day. Captain, says the woman who saved Ace's life, and the commander watches his brother's face darken for a moment, and then in an instant, get infinitely brighter. Nami, he says. Oh. Nami's so terrified she could cry. This is so out of her league. She's going to die. She's going to die, and she won't have made a map of the world, and Nojiko and Genzo are going to be so sad. What is she doing here? So when her captain propels himself towards them, she's on the edge of some sort of nervous breakdown. She wants Sunny. She wants her crew. She wants her home back, because she hasn't seen them in so long, and she misses them, and honestly Kuma. F it all, the Weatheria old man that took so long to show her the newspaper, the cloud thingy she had to threaten them into driving, Marineford and the Marines, and the fact that up until Luffy showed up she was so certain she was going to die alone and break everyone's hearts. She wants home, and Luffy isn't home, not exactly, but he's honestly good enough right now. He's great. He's the best thing Nami's seen all day. He's her captain, and if he's here she's marginally safer than with Ace, because at least then she's Luffy's navigator and not that one random person who saved Ace. Captain, she chokes out. Luffy looks at her, and for a second he doesn't recognize her, probably because of the dye on her hair, stolen from one of the homes in Marineford and applied just in case anyone had heard of cat burglar Nami before Dash, but then he breaks into his familiar grin, and oh, Nami could cry. She's not going to, they don't have the time, but she could. Nami, he says, and Ace says, what? And Nami smiles and takes her first full breath of the day. Hey, Captain. Looks like Zoro contaminated us all, because we've gotten horribly lost. Lucky you found me. Oh. Luffy's really relieved. First of all, Ace is free. He's angry at Luffy, but he's not really, and it's going to be fine, because he's free and he's stopped saying stupid things like give up or not worth it, and he's here, and they're going to win now. Ace is here. Second, Nami's here. Which is great, because Nami's the greatest navigator ever and she probably knows how to get them out of Marineford once they escape. But it's mostly great because she's Nami, and she's part of his crew, and she's here. He likes the friends he made in Impel Down well enough, but Nami's better. Also, she's the one who freed Ace, probably by lying and being smart and stealing things. Luffy has the best navigator ever. Even if she looks scared. She looks like how she did in front of Enel, or worst, Arlong, and he doesn't know why. She's smiling, at least, which is good, because Luffy made a promise to that one old man when they were at her home, and he doesn't break promises. Well, apparently you found him more than he found you, says Ace. You're Luffy's navigator? Yeah, answers Luffy enthusiastically. Nami, are you okay? How come you're here? She opens her mouth to answer, but then, ungrateful brats, shouts a familiar voice nearby. And Garp the hero lands in front of them. Oh. Garp lands in front of his grandsons, and tells himself this is for the best. Better him, than any of the admirals, than Doflamingo, or worse, Sengoku. What are you going to do? Asks a voice inside his head. He can't let Ace go, he's a criminal. But he can't bring him back, they'll kill him. But he can't let him go, he's the whole reason they're here. But he can't bring him back, he's his grandson. He's his grandson. He's a criminal. He saved him as a child, he can't save him now. He can. He can't. And Luffy? Dragon's son, and that's known worldwide now. He can't let him go either. He's a pirate too. He burned Eni's lobby. For a friend. How very Luffy. 2 grandsons, 2 criminals, and a choice you never wanted to make, says a voice in his head. So what are you going to do, now? I told you, says Garp. I told you to become Marines, and to follow the rules. I told you. And you had to become pirates still. I'm going to be Pirate King, Gramps. Shouts Luffy, frowning. I never would have made a good Marine, retorts Ace, taking on a fighting stance. No, says the woman at their side. That's not happening, I refuse. Luffy, permission to run? Stay here, I've got to protect you, orders Luffy, suddenly serious, glancing back at her. She looks surprised for a moment, blinking and almost like she's going to protest, but she nods. On second thought, running didn't work that well last time. Got it, Captain. She takes a step back, spinning in her hands what looks like a metallic pipe, and turns to face the rest of the soldiers watching the discussion. I'll just take care of the rest of them, then. If you want to stop us, shitty Gramps, declares Ace, then we're going to have to fight. Like I'm scared of you brats. Roars Garp, as if he hasn't been questioning his loyalty to his morals since the start of the war. Bring it on. So far, Doflamingo's been having a middling day. Leaving the New World for a petty marine war had greatly annoyed him the first time he heard about it, and he still despises being away from Dressrosa, or the New World. Paradise is dull and absolutely ridiculous in its optimism, and Doflamingo never really sailed it, but he still can't say he missed it. The war in itself has been, well, surprising is the least one could say. Irritating at first, what with the waiting, and the orders, and the self-righteous Marines thinking they could make him wait or give him orders. Fun, once the fighting started. Unexpected, once Monkey D. Luffy came along, he and his revolutionaries allies, that seemed unaware of anything regarding pacifistas. Now? It's becoming interesting. He has no idea who's the girl who saved Ace, but given the look on Sengoku's face she won't survive long. So maybe he could do the fleet admiral a favor, and rid him of his traitorous employee. He dodges crocodile sand easily enough and prepares to leap into the air. The brothers are fighting their grandfather, and the girl has her back turned to them, like she thinks she's safe. She's not even powerful enough to appear on his haki, easy prey. He lunges towards her, and just as he's about to strike. Did you know, says someone from Ivankov's head, that strings don't work that well when you cut them? And isn't that bound to be interesting? Oh. Okay, thinks Nami as soon as she turns towards the soldiers looking at her so warily. Okay, I can do this. This is Eni's lobby all over, her against Khalifa, on the edge of panicking and never really getting there. Her mind is as calm as it can be given the situation, because anything less means death, and Nami'd really prefer to avoid that, please and thank you. Most of the people in front of her are somewhat high-ranking Marines, the ones that didn't collapse suddenly for some weird reason. They seem to have been the strongest of the bunch, which is not ideal, but fewer enemies means less to focus on, and Nami really isn't that much of a heavy hitter. She can't remember if ice conducts electricity. She's pretty sure electrocuting herself is not the way to go to survive, so overuse of Thunderlance Tempo and Mirage Tempo it is. And if she can get her heat ball to melt the ice discreetly enough. Well, she hopes the really angry mob coming at her likes to swim. Oh. Marco is not going to leave his father's side. No matter how many times his captain sends him pointed looks, no matter how many times Kizaru mocks and taunts him, no matter how much he wants to kill Sengoku, swat Ace over the head, and be done with this war once and for all. As long as Whitebeard doesn't order, Marco doesn't have to obey, and as long as he's free to do as he pleases, he's going to protect his father, and kill anyone who tries to get to him. He's not going to leave, but he wishes he could, because Garp the Fist is going against Ace, and Marco doesn't know how that's going to end. Family going against family, once again, he spares a glare at Squard, who flinches back. Whitebeard's merciful. Marco? Much less. He's the first mate. Whatever his captain can't do, he does. Even if that means getting rid of traitors. It's painfully clear none of the 3 men want to fight. Ace keeps letting himself get hit and dissolving in flames because Garp isn't using Haki, and Monkey D. Luffy's aim is suddenly terrible. That is when he actually is fighting his grandfather and not knocking down soldiers aiming for Ace's savior that Marco is pretty sure she could have gotten rid of herself, given that apparently she can control lightning. None of them want to fight, but eventually, they'll have to. Marco doesn't know what's keeping Sengoku up here, eyes narrowed and stuck on his captain, when his prisoner escaped already. But the fleet admiral is bound to leave his spot at some point, and if Ace and Luffy have to face Garp and Sengoku, Marco knows who he'd bet on. And then Sengoku activates his devil fruit. He glows gold, and then, suddenly, leaps towards Whitebeard. Oh, thinks Marco as he realizes what's about to happen. His captain just laughs. Irritated to have been cornered, Fleet Admiral? Well, Guess it's time to see who, of the old era, really is the strongest man in the world. There's nothing, or precious little, Marco can do about Sengoku. But he's the first mate, and he's not going to leave his father's side. Oh. Sengoku has been leading the Marines for about 50 years, and this is not his best decision. This whole war is not his best decision. He should have had Gold Ace executed quietly, without anyone knowing about it. That would have been so much simpler, and so much less headache-inducing. Sengoku has the biggest headache he's ever had. A fleet admiral doesn't fight. Sengoku doesn't fight. He's not a pirate, he's a marine, and there's an entire hierarchy supposed to fight for him, and apparently they're all useless. So fine. He'll do it himself. He'll go end it with Whitebeard, who managed to outsmart him yet again even if he's a pirate, and then he'll kill Gold Ace, who managed to outsmart him as a baby, and then he'll kill the girl who made him look like an idiot in front of the entire world, and then maybe he'll retire to not have to contemplate his failures. That sounds like a plan. But first, he'll wipe the smug smile off of Whitebeard's head. Oh. The fleet admiral just left his station and stole his fight, so it's fair enough that Sakazuki does that, too. Whitebeard is infuriating, and he won't die, and he won't stop calling Sakazuki a brat. As if a pirate could be better than a marine admiral. As if Newgate hasn't been heavily wounded by said brat, while Sakazuki himself is perfectly fine. The old man is being delusional, and it's pissing Sakazuki off. So, fine. He'll go after his precious family, and Gold Ace is looking like a perfectly good target right now. And maybe while he's at it, he'll get Garp too. He's not looking like the upright marine Sakazuki had begrudgingly respected right now. One stone, two birds. Oh. Ben Dash starts to say Shanks, uncharacteristically serious, and his first mate looks at him and nods. Nearly there, Captain. Okay, so far Buggy's been surviving. Even if this is the worst. This is worse than getting caught, thrown into Impel Down, and dragged around in Impel Down by Straw Hat combined. This is why Buggy stuck to East Blue. Captain Roger would have jumped headfirst into this kind of mess, like Whitebeard did, and that's just proof that they're both insane. This is Captain Roger's son. This is Rouge's son, and Buggy is not thinking about it. It's not his business anymore. Captain Roger disbanded the crew too long ago. And apparently even them can't survive those sorts of things, apparently even emperors have to falter sometimes, and even captains have to disappoint. Whitebeard is holding his own honorably, all things considered. His earthquakes are well-timed and tend to make Sengoku miss or lose his balance, and they have the added bonus of wrecking the poor soldiers trying to help their fleet admiral, as if monsters like that need help when they tear into equally terrifying enemies. But it's clear who's winning, here. It's clear who went into the fight headfirst and who let his men die for him before finally getting irritated enough to involve himself in the fight. As much as Buggy despises Sengoku's tactic, it's working, and Whitebeard keeps coughing up blood, and his first mate stopped looking worried minutes ago and now looks heartbroken. He reluctantly takes flight, looking back at his dying father. Captain's orders, huh? Buggy can sympathize, even if they're the ones who get themselves into this mess. Oh. There's too much going on, is Nami's assessment of the situation. There's too many people, and too many fights, and she might be naturally observant and smart but she can feel herself getting tired. Unfortunately, she can't count on someone from the crew coming to rescue her, this time. Luffy keeps checking up on her, and if she was as brave as Zoro she might have yelled at him to focus on this fight and take her seriously, but actually she's pretty sure he saved her life thrice in the last 3 minutes. The Marines have started to catch on to the fact that getting close to her is a bad idea, and getting close to her clouds is a bad idea, and shooting at her all at once is bound to make her captain scowl and send the bullets right back to where they came from. Things are at a standstill. And Nami isn't even where the Marines think she is, because Mirage Tempo is the greatest thing she ever made. Her hands are sore from clutching her Climatact so hard, and her head aches in the way it always does when she's nearing some kind of limits, but she takes a moment to watch the battlefield near her. Some scissors guy is scowling at some laughing guy some distance away from her, but not nearly as far as she'd like. She can't tell which is on the Marine side. Given the walls of ice and stone getting thrown at the man in pink, who looks like he can fly but sometimes starts to fall and scowl, she's not going to approach to find out who is her pseudo-ally and who isn't. Nearer her still are Luffy, Ace, and Garp, and Nami's not worried about that. It's clear none of them are going to hurt each other. The fight needs to end at some point, though, because they seriously need to run. Ace isn't going to stay free if they stay in one place. She prepares to call for him, when she notices something approaching rapidly. That's one of the admirals, and he's aiming at the fight her captain is in. Oh. Inazuma is not going to say that he misses Impel Down, because that would be ridiculous. Impel Down was damp, dark, crowded, and a prison. Marine Ford, on the other hand, is sunny, pleasantly warm, and filled to the brim with madmen, apparently. Doflamingo's is way more powerful than Inazuma expected, and the only thing keeping Inazuma alive is probably the fact that his fruit is the literal antithesis of his. Need a little help, Inazuma? Calls Ivankov. Inazuma spares them a glance before slamming an entire chunk of ice onto Doflamingo, who just laughs it off, the BSTRD. If you don't mind, he answers, which translates roughly as please punch him in the face. Ivankov doesn't seem too opposed. Of course not, they smile. You don't mind, do you, Doflamingo? I still have some questions for you. Doflamingo smirk, not looking the littlest bit worried. Trying to get answers? Guess bad habits really do stick with you, huh? Come on, join the fray, I'm getting bored. Inazuma slams a wall of stone into his face. Oh. There are not enough words in the world to express how much Marco hates this. His captain's going to die. He flies as fast as he can towards the rest of the fleet. Organize the retreat had been Whitebeard's order, thrown at him with enough strength that he hadn't thought about protesting a single second, no matter how much he wanted to. To truly organize the retreat, Marco would have needed 3 more days, things going according to plan, and not to have the unavoidable knowledge that his father is sacrificing himself for his sons at the forefront of his mind. But the world rarely gets him what he wants, and this time is no exception. So he's telling everyone to gather their wounded, and to have their doctors ready, and their navigators even readier. When his captain gives the signal, which will probably be an incredibly powerful earthquake, they need to get out of here, preferably before the tsunamis hit. The Moby DS gone, which, his home is gone. His ship is gone, his home is gone, so Marco has no idea where his men are supposed to go, but he figures there's enough room on the ships left, considering, well, the number of dead. Marco hates this so much. Oh. Kobe has a headache. Kobe has 7 headaches, all piled up on top of each other. His headaches are fighting. His headaches are holding a screaming contest. Nope, that's the screams of the dying. Kobe wants to vomit, and he has a headache, and Helmeppo is the only thing holding him upright, and he thought he was past this. Pa being weak, past doubting the Marines, past holding people back, past not being worth of Luffy's attention. He was such an idiot to think that he could face him. He was such an idiot to think he could stomach a war. Even Helmeppo is doing better than him right now, keeping both himself and Kobe from dying. So many people are dying. For nothing. He has to do something, he has to stop this somehow, except killing Ace wouldn't stop anything, and maybe this can't be stopped by anyone, least of all Kobe. Kobe, says Helmeppo urgently. Kobe, what do we do, what's going on with you, OC's dash. Kobe looks up to Whitebeard's slowly sinking silhouette, to his fleet admiral's unflinching gold that looks so immaculate. Why didn't you fight? Why didn't you keep people from dying? Why did you even make this happen? How come you're completely fine, hours into this fight? How come Whitebeard looks like a fairer leader than you? And well, if he wants to stop anything, these are the only people that could do something. Towards the front, he says to Helmeppo, and then shrugs his friend's arm off his shoulders and starts walking. So many people are dying, and Kobe signed up for helping people. For justice. This isn't justice. Oh. There are few things that Akainu hates as much as criminals. Traitors are one of those. Cowards are another. Weaklings are a third. This battlefield is filled with nothing but those 4 things, and he's going to make it right. He has to, that's his mission. Absolute justice waits for no one, and Akainu is its perfect soldier. Now the question is which he goes for first. The coward traitor? Or the weakling criminal? Okay, so Crocodile said. Like most of the important people on the battlefield, granted. But his anger, he likes to think, is a bit rarer than, say, Akainu's. It's subtler, like quicksand, it SCKS him in, and once it has him, it won't let him go. And currently, Crocodile said. Doflamingo, arrogant BSTRD that he is, up and left their fight. Like Crocodile doesn't matter enough to be a valuable opponent, like he's some kid, pretending to play pirate. Like he wasn't a warlord, too. Crocodile may have lost his henchmen, and his prestige, and his freedom, but he still has his pride. His pride is telling him to go throttle Doflamingo, and then to stab Straw Hat in the back, while he's at it. Crocodile's happy to oblige. Oh. Maybe it was foolish of him, but Helmeppo really thought he was past this. Not the fights and blood and unfairness, no, of course not, he's never been as idealistic as Kobe. Those he always expected to stick around, never thought he'd get rid of. Travels in the Grand Line are rarely peaceful, a subordinate's life is rarely valued, the Marines are rarely compassionate. But he really, truly thought he was past bad decisions. He thought that he'd grown past them, at least. That the past who knows how many months under Garp's command had cured him of his stupidity. Of course, looking back on it he's saying he expected Garp to make him smarter. So maybe it's not that surprising it didn't work. This may be the worst decision he could have made in this exact situation, muses Helmeppo as he follows Kobe, heading towards Sengoku and Whitebeard's very distinct silhouettes. There are very few decisions that have a higher chance of him dying. But Kobe won't stop, and Helmeppo's not even sure how he can bear to stand, right now, and at least when his friend inevitably collapses, Helmeppo will be here to catch him and hopefully manage to avoid getting both of them shot on sight. There's something to be said for loyalty, even past logic, muses Helmeppo. There's something to be said for trusting someone enough that you'd follow them in the lion's den. He guesses his time with Garp has at least taught him that. Oh. Ace blinks, like that's going to get rid of the image engraved on the inside of his eyelids. His captain is fighting Sengoku, alone. His captain just fell to the ground. His captain isn't getting up. His father isn't getting up. What's going on? Where's Marco? Marco wouldn't have left Pops alone, he barely ever leaves his side on the Moby D dash, so. Whitebeard gets up, grinning something fierce, calls something Ace can't quite catch. Pay attention to me, you brat. Yells Garp as he lunges towards Ace, his voice covering Luffy's panicked Ace. Ace dodges reflexively, only his reflexes he got from Gramps' training, so the fist hits him easily and sends him reeling. Gramps used Haki, he distantly registers. They're not playing anymore. Oh. It's lucky that Nami's mother deserted the Marines when Nami and Nojiko were young, otherwise she would have been really sad at her daughter for electrocuting an admiral. Well, trying to, at least, because the lightning hit but didn't seem to have any effect. Snarls Magma Admiral. You first, then. Her never, Nami wants to suggest, and squeaks in terror while narrowingly avoiding boiling magma. Nami! Calls Luffy in the same frantic voice he had when they all disappeared on Subodi, and she barely has time to breathe before a rubber arm catches her by the arm and drags her towards him. Are you okay? Luffy, she manages to breathe out. She regains her balance just in time to see Garp lunging at them, Ace knocked down against the ice a few paces away. She quite literally throws both her and her captain to the ground, Luffy letting her pull him down. Focus on your fight, idiot. I'm fine. That's an admiral, he says, weirdly serious. You're not strong enough to fight him. I know, she hisses. I'm not planning on fighting him, I'm planning on running. I'm good at that, Captain, you don't need to worry about me. But Luffy frowns, before Garp's fist hits the ground just next to them, the strength of his punch shattering the ice beside them and nearly sending Luffy into the water. Nami catches the scruff of his cardigan just in time to pull him back over the edge. Be careful, she scolds. Zoro isn't there to rescue you this time. Focus, Captain, end this, and as soon as you're done we'll run and get away from this nightmare of a situation, okay? Luffy considers her for a few seconds, and Nami resists the urge to look down to avoid his gaze. Okay, he says finally. But be careful. Of course, she promises, and as he jumps away to join his brother, she looks at the crowd of Marines still gathered nearby. Well, either the Admiral will have a hard time aiming, or there's going to be a lot more collateral damage to their confrontation than he'd have expected. Oh. Sengoku looks back on the rest of the battlefield just long enough to notice that Sakazuki isn't where he's supposed to be anymore, and even just that small window of time is enough for Whitebeard to shock him with an earthquake that he's pretty sure just shattered one of his bones. Gold still hasn't been recaptured, which is less surprising than he'd like. Whitebeard won't be kept down, and he might be losing, but not a single pirate Sengoku has ever somewhat respected ever learned when to back down. There's no way he can get away long enough to get the execution done and over with. Whitebeard's first mate isn't there anymore, which can't be good. Garp is still in the middle of his fight against his grandsons, which means no one else will dare intervene. This is not how he thought today would go. Mihawk would much rather be home. He's aware that. It doesn't mean much. He spends most of his time traveling thinking that he'd rather be home, after all. The Grand Line is boring and noisy, while Kuraigana Island is peaceful, given that you've given sufficient incentive for the gorilla to respect you. Which Mihawk has done. Plenty of times. Of course, that's also more reasons for them to try and kill him, but that was to be expected, and really less of a problem than the previous inhabitants of the island had made it be. Or would have made it to be, he imagines. The dead are really bad at proper communication, that's why Mihawk likes them so much. They're calm and predictable and quiet. Mihawk would like to emphasize how loud Marineford is. It's not even the various grunts and yells that bother him, those aren't out of place on a battlefield, and though Mihawk hasn't witnessed a proper battle in a long while, preferring to cut his opponents down as efficiently as possible, he wasn't always this powerful. No, what bothers isn't so ordinary. It's more the absolute waste of Conqueror's Haki every single fighter seems to be intent on projecting, and the emotions that come with it. There are the exhaustion and determination from Roronoa's captain, mild annoyance from Doflamingo, extreme annoyance from Sengoku, even faint worry and antsiness from Shanks. Wait a second. Shanks? Oh. It feels cathartic to punch Sengoku in the face. Edward Newgate, by nature, isn't a vengeful person. He's protective and a little prideful, yes, but he doesn't seek conflicts, and he sees no point in unleashing his earthquakes just for the sake of violence. He likes to think himself a better emperor than either Kaido or Linlin, and a better one than Shanks, too, if for different reasons. But shattering Sengoku's jaw feels good. But sending him and his endless soldiers stumbling because of yet another earthquake feels great, and they must have forgotten, after all, that as pacifist as Whitebeard had been in the past decades, he was still a pirate. That people shied away from attacking his territories for a reason, that he stood on top of this era for a reason, and that reason wasn't sentimentalism. They must have forgotten, he muses, and slams Murakumajiri down in a move that shatters further the ice around him. They must have forgotten, and that was favor he'd done them, but they attacked Ace, they took one of his, and Whitebeard doesn't have the luxury of peace, not anymore. His lungs burn and he probably isn't going to survive this, and so many of his died in this war, and Edward Newgate isn't a hateful person but he hates the Marines with such viciousness right now. But at least punching Sengoku in the face feels good. Oh. If Luffy had the energy, he'd worry about Nami. It's not that he doesn't trust her. She said she'd run, and he believes her, but she ran at Sabaody, they all did, and they still lost, so badly. But she's alone, but this is an admiral, and the last time they went up against, he froze Robin and made her scared, and Luffy couldn't stop it. Luffy trusts Nami, but he knows her, and the fear in her eyes as she urged him to focus was a little too forceful for him to ignore. He wishes he could go back, and fight with her, or at least escape with her, because he trusts her, but she's not as strong as he is, and Luffy is barely strong enough for this war. But Gramps won't let him leave, and if Luffy had the energy left to snarl he'd do it, no matter how much Ace would make fun of him after. He aims another flurry of blow towards Garp, panting all the while, and glares when none of them reach their target. Luffy calls Ace, and he dodges another block of concrete just in time, and watches as Gramps pretends he doesn't know that wouldn't hurt him. His knuckles are bleeding. He's tired and annoyed and he doesn't know what Nami's doing. This needs to end. Ace jumps up high, and another fireball blooms from his palm. Gramps stopped laughing at him for those a while ago, about the same moment Ace stopped blunting them. Luffy scowls. Come on, Gramps, he yells. Let us leave. I won't. Yells Garp back, and Ace lets out a yell of frustration and gets a lot closer to their opponent suddenly. You're not that shitty of a grandpa, he states, scowling too but something pleading hidden in his voice, so let us leave before Luffy gets hurt. Garp's face twists, for a moment, before hardening. You're pirates, he says finally, and hits Ace in the temple with a force that sends him hurtling towards the ground. Ace! Calls Luffy, and jumps towards Garp to give his brother the time to escape, before. You Ace, asks someone covered in blue flames. You mind if I take care of your grandpa? Oh. There's a thing that you learn pretty quickly, when you're a straw hat. Devil fruit users can't swim. It's a fact that you register pretty quickly when your captain falls overboard daily, regularly followed by his worried doctor. It's something Nami's pretty sure every sailor on the Grand Line knows, even if it was little more than a legend on East Blue, when she was growing up. It's not some hidden knowledge, Nami's pretty sure every single person on this battlefield is aware of it. No, the hidden knowledge Nami has, is how to deal with arrogant assholes. She has nobody to tell her if she's wrong, but she's pretty sure Akainu fits that category pretty well. So, when you gather the facts. First, Akainu's ridiculously powerful, so much so that Nami's probably going to die the second she tops and faces him head-on. The only reason she's alive right now is probably because he's toying with her. Thank God for arrogant asshole's penchant for SDSM, it saved her life more times than she can count. Second, Akainu has eaten a devil fruit, evidenced by the ball of magma he's throwing at her, and thus cannot swim. Nami hasn't. Nami can swim. Nami was blackmailed by a fishman for several years and can swim very well. Third, they're fighting on an iced-over ocean, and next. To a fight between whoever and a living inferno. She's fighting a magma-made person. Fourth, ice melts. Fifth, this is a bad plan, but Nami's so past that point. So Nami runs, and taunts an admiral as much as she can without losing her breath and thus dimming herself, and hopes she'll still be alive to hear the hours-long lecture on hypothermia Chopper will inflict on her if she survives this. The problem, as Kuzan understands it, is that they're losing. Well, no, that's not a problem, exactly. They're fighting for justice, after all, and justice is always going to come out on top, isn't it? They can't lose, even if they don't do anything. That's not how it works. Justice always triumphs, no matter how, or when. That's why he let Nico Robin escape, wasn't it? She'd die one day. That's how justice works, it comes eventually. She isn't dead, they stormed Eni's lobby for her. But she will be. That's how justice works. So the problem isn't that they're losing, because they aren't. Realistically speaking, the problem is more Sengoku's temper, and the blood running down his commanding officer's arms. Realistically speaking, the problem is the fact that Kazan's running out of breath, the way Sakazuki's running after no one, the way he can't even see where Borsellino is. The problem is that. The problem is that they're not winning. Is that no one's winning, that the battlefield is too crowded, and too messy, and Kazan wouldn't understand what was happening, even if he cared enough to try and decipher the situation. This is war. It was always going to be, and Kazan knows that, and they're supposed to be winning. But they aren't. So what happens, if justice loses? Oh. Kobe takes a deep breath before stepping onto the iceberg. Helmeppo, by his side, mutters a curse, aimed at no one in particular, or, equally possible, aimed very pointedly at Kobe. An earthquake shakes the ground, and beneath their feet, the ice shatters as the partially freed water rises in waves that are big enough to knock them into the frigid ocean. Kobe, predictably enough, loses his balance, falling backward and right into the gap between the bit of ice he was standing on and the rest of the mostly intact battlefield. He yelps, and sends out a hand towards nothing at all, because Kobe is an idiot. Helmeppo curses and steadies him, just barely, before stepping onto the same iceberg as Kobe, looking apprehensively at the two giants locked into battle near them. So close to them, in fact, that they're basically standing at ground zero, a portion of the battlefield that all other soldiers have made the wise decision to depart. Kobe grits out Helmeppo, panic making into his voice despite his best efforts, which really aren't that much to begin with. Kobe, what are we doing here? Would it kill you to give me any semblance of explanation? You don't need to follow me, rasps out Kobe, intently focused on the ground before him. His head aches bad enough to make his vision go wobbly, and he feels weak in a way that has nothing to do with anything physical. I'd be fine alone. Yes, clearly me saving you from drowning 2 seconds ago is a perfect example of that, retorts Helmeppo, sounding disapproving, but he keeps on trudging next to Kobe, jumping from unsteady iceberg to even unsteadier iceberg. Kobe doesn't know how, or when, he earned Helmeppo's unwavering faith, but he has never felt more thankful for it. Look, we're too far gone to turn back now. I've accepted my upcoming death, but Kobe, do you even have a plan? Kobe falters for a moment, and stops in his tracks. He clenches his fists, looking above at what must be the two most powerful fighters in Marineford. This isn't fair, he mutters, something angry or pleading hidden in his voice, and Helmeppo softens for a moment, and breathes out. What, did you ever think it was? This is just a mistake, thinks Kobe. This is fixable. This could still be justice. Kobe clenches his jaws, ignores the screaming that won't leave his head, and walks on. Oh. It's not that Doflamingo's bored, it's just that the fight is getting repetitive. These are revolutionaries, and revolutionaries, except for a select few, are not heavy hitters, or hitters of any kind, really. They deal in shadows, more than in blood. Ivankov and whoever else are holding their own, of course, as any New World fighter ought to. They're helped by Whatever's devil fruit, and the natural advantage it has over Doflamingo's, but what's the point of having scissors if there are too many strings to cut? Or if there are no strings to cut, just a slow simmering of conquerors and copious amounts of observations and armaments hockey. The fight is getting boring, and Doflamingo sighs and lets his mind wander, lets his observations hockey cover the whole battlefield for a moment, uncaring of the migraine that's sure to earn him. He's so bored. That's probably why he gets distracted enough to get stabbed in the back by a suspiciously familiar golden hook. Now, Joker, did no one ever taught to not run off on your guests? Smiles Crocodile, smugly. Just before Doflamingo cuts his head off, which he just laughs off, of course. 3 again 1, muses Doflamingo out loud. Now isn't that a little pathetic? But at least it's not boring anymore. Oh. Garp clenches his jaw, looking up at his new opponents. I'm not letting them leave, he warns, jerking his head in the direction where both his grandsons are currently trying and failing to catch their breath. That's fine, smiles Marco the Phoenix with an amount of venom that Garp could notice even blind, deaf and dead. I'm not giving you a choice. He raises his voice a little, and calls out, so, Ace? Marco, pants the fugitive. It's fine, I'm fine, go help Pops, not me dash. We came here to help you, and our captain Marco grits his teeth for a moment, before smoothly continuing, doesn't require any help at the moment. That's bullshit. Protests Ace immediately, desperation leaking into his voice. No, Marco, you have to go help him, you have to dash. Luffy, from his position between Garp and Ace, scowls. Even more, that is. That's stupid, Ace, he's your captain, he states. He's just doing his job. His job isn't to die for us His job's to protect you, retorts Luffy fiercely, and glances in the direction his navigator took off mere moments ago. Ace shakes his head. Marco, please dash. Your brother's right, Ace, finally says Marco, looking down onto them, and to his credit his voice doesn't break. I have orders. I'll take care of your grandfather, okay? Just get back safe. I'll protect him, Chicken Man. Calls Luffy, and it's a testament to the direness of the situation that neither Ace nor Marco protest any part of his statement. Thanks for fighting Gramps for us. He grins, because only Luffy could have the strength to grin in those kinds of situations, and looks around him. Okay. Now we just get Nami, and this all will finally be done. Oh. Nami sees him too late, is the problem. In her defense, this situation is so out of the realm of what she can handle that it would almost be laughable if, her life wasn't on the line. So when she runs out of breath, stumbles over nothing, and allows Akainu to get too close, really, it's not that surprising. That doesn't mean it's not terrifying, of course. Finally, hisses Akainu, and catches her wrist in a vice grip that soon enough starts to burn. Nojiko's bracelet falls to the ground, utterly destroyed, and Nami shrieks and trashes in the Admiral's grip. He seems oddly disappointed, underneath the veneer of pride and anger he's worn throughout all of Marineford. That's it? He asks. All this chaos that's been caused for this? And he sneers at her, and Nami. He reminds her of Arlong. Nami can deal with Arlongs. Nami snarls, and clenches the Climattact, that despite the pain she hadn't allowed to fall out of her grasp. If you want more, she grits out, voice damaged and raw, here you go. The thunderbolt tempo hits the ice, and Nami clenches her jaw as the electricity courses through her body. Akainu laughs. Thunder doesn't hurt Logia's, girl. He booms out, and reaches towards her once again. No, mutters Nami, panting, but it does shatter ice, idiot. She slams her Climattact down, one last time, and only has the time to see Akainu's eyes widen. And then the ground opens up under both of them, and they plunge into dark waters. If Ben hadn't sworn his life to his captain decades ago, this is probably when he'd jump the boat. This, invading Marineford, interfering in another emperor's war, this is probably when anyone would decide that this is too much for Shanks to ask of them. Anyone but his crew, of course. Their captain has never doubted that they'd follow him, and in turn they have never hesitated before jumping into battle next to him. Shanks is tense next to him, armaments Haki covering his skin almost subconsciously. Ben stopped trying to get him to relax long ago, the second they started feeling Whitebeard's slowly wavering aura. Shanks, Ben knows, has known Whitebeard for almost as long as he has been sailing. Whitebeard was his captain's friend. Whitebeard had survived. Whitebeard is going to die. Neither of them have ever been very good at being patient, though Ben fakes it better, and so the first mate knows how much the waiting is killing his impulsive captain. But power isn't everything, but some powers you can't earn, and for this war to be stopped, the Marines have to win something, have to escape with their dignity intact at least, and intervening now would only endanger Ace more in the future. As much as Shanks hates politics, he's good at them. And so, at the edge of a war, Red Hair Shanks and his crew wait for a sacrifice to be made. And hope that it will be the right one. Oh. Ivankov doesn't usually run, but their years in Impel Down have finally caught up to them, it seems, and Doflamingo's shirt is tainted with red. Blood is pouring from Inazuma's throat. Ivankov doesn't usually run, and they could stay, and win, even, if they so wished, if they were ready to make the necessary sacrifices that would require. Inazuma survived Impel Down. Inazuma made Impel Down bearable. Inazuma is dying. Hesitation is often deadly, but Ivankov lets themselves have this luxury, for once, as they stand frozen in place, staring at their friend's too still body on the too slippery ground, made even slicker by blood. Doflamingo grins at them, and then, like they've decided neither Inazuma nor Ivankov is worth his attention anymore, turns his back to them. Ivankov seethes quietly, and finally decides. Crocodile throws a mocking taunt in their direction as they pick up their friend, and Ivankov is loyal to Dragon, to his ideals, to his revolutions, but Inazuma isn't, not necessarily, and it isn't right that he should die for someone else's loyalties. Inazuma followed Ivankov into Impel Down, and Ivankov doesn't know what they will do if he does not follow them out and back home. Oh. The lightning clap fades at the same time as Luffy's panicked yell. Ace frowns, eyes still locked onto the rapidly disappearing fight between Marco and Gramps, his crewmate visibly doing his best to lure the Marine away from Ace. He turns his head to the side just in time to see his brother rush at a somewhat terrifying speed towards no one at all. What happened? Luffy stops next to a hole in the ice that is their ground, and for a terrifying moment Ace is convinced his little brother has forgotten that he's eaten a devil fruit, and that he's about to jump into the water. "Luffy!" he shouts, and Luffy ignores him completely, looking much more focused than usual, and pays no mind to the Marines taking aim towards him, just stretches his arm and sends it into the water, and that is when Ace finally realizes. Nami uses lightning to fight. Nami is nowhere to be seen. Neither is Akainu, for that matter, but Ace will take that blessing and not question it, for once. The Marines fire, and Luffy doesn't even bother dodging, just stands there, eyes stuck on the water, visibly straining to send his arm deeper and deeper. The bullets impact, get sent back. Ace, not for the first time, is quietly grateful that seastone bullets are so ridiculously hard to craft, and then very loudly infuriated that those Marines just tried to kill his brother, even if it's not the first time. None of them are fast enough to avoid the fireball he sends their way. He grins at his success before focusing back onto Luffy's expression, watching as it goes from focused to relieved, a smile blooming on his face. "Found her!" he calls, and not a second later Nami's body shoots out from the water as she crashes into her captain, sending both of them reeling away from the edge of the hole. She coughs up salt water frantically, and Ace's eyes land on the log pose and metal pipe she clutches in her right hand before spotting the various burns on her arm, understanding dawning on him. "Thanks, Captain," she rasps out. "I think Akainu's out of the fight now." She grins. "I drowned him." And Luffy only laughs, shishishi, and says, beaming, "You're the best, Nami." Oh. Doflamingo knocks Crocodile out so easily it could be laughable, if it wasn't so predictable. Ivankov runs, taking their fallen comrade with them, and he considers following them for a second, before Akiji materializes beside him. "Sakazuki's in the water," the man says, looking lost, and Doflamingo scowls at him. "So what?" "He's an admiral. Rescue him." "He should have been strong enough not to get tricked in the first place," retorts Doflamingo. "And can't you do that, anyway, Admiral?" "I'm your superior officer," he states, "and that's an order." "You're my superior in no way at all, little lost man, and I don't take orders from anyone," hisses Doflamingo. "I'm a pirate. You're a warlord, and you're employed by the world government. I say rescue him, or you lose your privileges, Don Quixote." Marines and their arrogance, but he's got a point, and Akainu owing Doflamingo his life is at least an interesting prospect. "Fine," smiles Doflamingo, "and wouldn't it be funny to see Akainu's face when he realizes he owes a pirate a debt? Wouldn't it be interesting? Oh. This is so much easier than fighting Luffy and Ace," thinks Garp as he sends Marco crashing into the ground on his back, the wounds left by Garp's armament Haki healing almost instantly. "Aren't you supposed to be their grandfather? And you'd have killed them?" spits Marco, not even bothering getting up. The venom in his voice probably wouldn't be there, had Squard not betrayed his crew and Marco's so precious family. Or maybe it would. Family's always been a touchy subject, with the Whitebeard crew. "All of you pirates have made your choice," shouts back Garp, like he actually believes that, and tries to slam his foot into Marco's chest to mask his hesitation. His opponent just raises an arm, and grits his teeth as Garp's armament-infused foot slams into it. Around them, the ground shatters further, ice shards flying away. Garp could win. Marco's down on the ground, lost his balance, is reduced to defending himself. A phoenix's healing is not something to underestimate, but neither is a broken neck. And Marco's a pirate, an emperor's first mate, no blood or as good as blood relations to mess it all up, a criminal. The kind of person Garp is supposed to, and has, killed. But he's Ace's family. But he tried to save Ace. But Garp would have let Ace die, might still, and between the two of them it's Marco that holds true to his morals, that is not wavering, pulled between affection and duty. Marco's a criminal, through and through, and Garp doesn't know what it means, that right now he holds the high moral ground. He doesn't want to know. Marco laughs at him, low and wounded and angry. "Choose a side, or lose both," he hisses, no nonchalance left in him, violent and bloodthirsty. He pushes Garp's foot away, getting up into the air with the same swiftness Garp has seen him use to stab people. This is Whitebeard's first mate, this is the phoenix, rising from the ashes of the fires he's kindled himself, not innocent but blood-stained. This is what Garp cannot allow civilians to see, this is what he cannot let go free. Roger had been his friend, and Garp had brought him in still. This is a decade-old dilemma, and in the end, he'll always pick the same answer. Say goodbye, Phoenix, grimly states Garp the hero, loyal soldier to the Marines, and steels himself to finally kill Ace's crewmate. Only to find it very difficult to breathe with a claw buried inside his lung. Ace is gonna be mad at me for this, acknowledges Marco wryly. You talk too much, Marine, and you don't heal as easily as I do. And you seem to forget I can fly. Garp stumbles back, Marco's hand comes out red with blood. The pirate only smiles as he starts to choke, and doesn't seem to be surprised when he laughs instead. This will not defeat him, but winning this might just kill him. Sengoku's going to be so devastated, once he realizes he ordered him to go to his death, realizes Garp distantly. But Sengoku had kept him next to Ace during the bulk of the war, had made him a witness to his grandson's despair and tears, and Garp cannot bring himself to be anything but vindictive, even while obeying orders. Grief for grief, sacrifice for sacrifice. This is war, after all, isn't it? It's good that Law had no plan for the war, because it's not going as he had imagined. He's willing to bet he's not alone in his surprise, though. If only because he's pretty much no one could have predicted Monkey D. Luffy falling from the sky, or anyone getting close enough to port gas D. Ace to actually free him. Doflamingo's here, and he's laughing, even from afar he can be heard, refuses as always to be ignored. Law's hands itch, for a cigarette or a knife. But that's not what he's here to do, and restraint has always been one of his best skills. Patience. Whichever. He grimaces as yet another earthquake shakes his ship, the water rising above them. They're too close to both Sengoku and Whitebeard for comfort, but moving now would be a guaranteed death sentence, and Khorasan still hasn't been avenged, so that's not an option. Plus, his crew is there. Captain, says Beepo nervously from the side, watching along. Captain, what happens if the Marines win? Do you think we'll get away? They don't know we're here, answers Law, glancing back to see his navigator visibly afraid. He softens his cutting tone before saying, trust me, Beepo, when we go on a suicide mission, you'll know. Every mission is a suicide mission with you, grumbles Shachi to the side, but refrains from making any further comment. Law looks back on the battlefield, and despite his intention to look at something else, he finds his gaze inevitably drawn to the Titans' fight in front of him. Whitebeard and Sengoku's confrontation is without contest the most impressive thing happening on this battlefield, if not the most unexpected. The ground, or what passes for it, shakes around them, and Law would say that it's only a matter of time before either or both of the old men fall into the ocean, but of course it isn't. Sengoku's winning. It's clear. He might not have unbroken bones anymore, but Whitebeard isn't any better, has been slowly slowing, movement sluggish and visibly struggling to use his weapon. Sometimes, his armament flickers. Law grimaces at the mess that is no doubt going to become the new world, and resolves to wait a year or so before heading there. The loss of an emperor, well, those things are messy. It's a shame that Whitebeard must die, he considers distantly. But he was a relic of an old era, arguably the biggest one, and it was inevitable. This fight was never a fair one. Sengoku hadn't even bothered to pretend he was going to fight alongside his men. He'd come to Whitebeard in his still pristine uniform, and though Whitebeard had laughed at him at his arrival, he definitely isn't laughing now, gritting his teeth, coughing more and more frequently, blood pouring from his bullet wounds and the sides of his mouth. Law watches, somewhat bored even as Beepo whimpers at his side, as Sengoku goes to knock Whitebeard out, the golden glow around him almost hiding his movement. Whitebeard blocks the incoming punch, dropping down to one knee with the force of it, lets out a strained laugh and pushes against Sengoku's arm until his opponent stumbles back, scowling. Getting up, he swings his blade wide, and Sengoku visibly recoils from the force of the shockwave that must have hit. Law's pretty sure the fleet admiral's ears are bleeding. This has to end at some point, comments Shachi, incredulity piercing in his voice. They can't go on like this forever. Law hums non-committally. I'm more interested in knowing what those two are doing, he says. Who? Asks Penguin from where he's manning the commands of the ship. Whitebeard and Sengoku. I mean, even from where I am it's pretty clear, Captain. Not them, throws back Law, eyes narrowing. But the two soldiers just next to them. There's someone there? Exclaims Beepo, leaning in like that'll help him see better. Oh, you're right, Captain. Well, they definitely have a death wish, scoffs Shachi. Law leans back. Maybe, he mutters. But this has been unpredictable up until here. Maybe they have another freak plan that'll change the course of the war, who knows? Oh. Helmeppo, yells Kobe at full volume, turning back to look at him, eyes crazed and hands shaking. Helmeppo, I don't have a plan. He's aware that he probably should have realized that sooner, but all his righteous anger vanished just a little too late, as in right in front of the two most powerful people on this battlefield. Helmeppo visibly restrains for screaming out loud. It was the concussion speaking, he mutters, dread coloring his tone. I knew it was the concussion speaking, why did I even follow you, I should have just knocked you out dash. Why didn't you knock me out, Helmeppo, what are we doing here, we're going to die dash. You seemed like you knew what you were doing. I made a decision without panicking and you decided to trust me. Helmeppo opens his mouth to answer, and crouches low to the ground instead to avoid his skull exploding from the shockwave Whitebeard just sent in their vague direction. Kobe follows suit, and they both shake and try not to cry until it passes. Kobe, says Helmeppo calmly, though an edge of desperation shows in the way his fingers clench around Kobe's forearm. You do have a plan. You would not have made me cross a battlefield had you not had a plan. I have an idea of a draft of a plan, at best, and even from here I can see that it's a bad plan. Kobe, repeats Helmeppo with the same weird sort of intensity. Kobe, we are 20 meters away from the most dangerous people in this place. We are both probably some degree of concussed. Our way back sunk into the sea 5 minutes ago. Kobe, I need you to understand that good plans do not exist in our situation. Kobe swallows in a way that would probably be audible were they not in the middle of a battlefield. It's Garp level of insane, he says weakly. Maybe worse. Scratch that, definitely worse. We'll die. We are going to die regardless, points out Helmeppo. Because we are standing on a miserably small bit of ice, and in the middle of what is basically the ocean during a storm. There is no scenario where we do not fall off and drown, Kobe, I hope you realize that. Either your fatalism is weirdly reassuring, or I physically cannot be more terrified, Kobe tells him, and inhales shakily as he gets up. It takes him a moment to force himself to move again. But when he does he starts heading even closer to the fight. Okay. Time to hopefully stop this war. Oh, good, we're setting low goals, comments Helmeppo behind him, still clutching onto his sleeve, and Kobe spares a low chuckle that sounds more like a sob, which is honestly the best he can do right now. Okay, we're getting closer, why exactly? They need to see us, answers Kobe. And then, well, let me talk. Oh, sees, mutters Helmeppo. Your horrified tone is not helping my confidence in my plan. You'll get over it. Or you won't, but we're probably about to get pulverized by our fleet admiral because we interfered in his fight, so, you know, your level of confidence won't matter much longer. They stop, the ground shaking under their feet, and Kobe spares a moment to be quietly grateful for Garp's insane training regiment. And then, he inhales deeply, lets it out slowly, and yells, at the top of his lungs. What are you doing? Oh sees, he hear Helmeppo says at his side. Oh. Marco rushes backward to avoid a punch to the face, and almost falls into the water before his reflexes kick in and he starts to fly. Garp the Fist laughs at him, teeth stained red and chest rising only shallowly. Marco thought he'd be dead by now, but Ace's grandfather is as stubborn as he is, and a hole in his chest doesn't seem to be enough to deter him. Say, Phoenix, he rasps out, would you do me a favor, since you'll kill me? Marco can't raise an eyebrow as a phoenix, but the intent is there. Old man? Long ago, a friend asked me to help him save Ace. When he was still a baby. Asked me to help him, and he made me promise to take care of Ace, the BSTRD, before he died. Marco switches to hybrid form and lashes his talons at Garp's shoulder, the Marine's too late to deflect it, but honestly at this point, a wound or two isn't going to change anything, except maybe save Garp's postmortem reputation. Roger always was too charismatic for everyone else's good, says Marco noncommittally. Garp grins fiercely. I hate to ask that to a pirate, but since you're Ace's crew, would you look after him for me? Shitty brat didn't listen and had to go and be a pirate, but I still want him to be happy. Then you could have fought for him, scowls Marco, instead of fighting for the people trying to kill him. You could have freed him. No, says Garp, and doesn't explain further. Marco can feel the venom in his throat, the anger and disappointment at Garp that don't even belong to him. Yes, you could have, he hisses, but Garp only shakes his head, and asks, focused, will you do it? Marco bristles. Of course I will. And not because of some bullshit favor, because I'm Ace's family. That should be reason enough to take his side. You're still the same brat you were when I first met you, laughs Garp. It's not a matter of sides. Still, thank you. It's good to know both my grandson will be in good hands. I promised nothing about Luffy, points out Marco. Garp shrugs at him with his bad shoulder, and doesn't even wince at the pain either because he doesn't feel it anymore or. No. Given his paleness, definitely because he doesn't feel anything anymore. Sure, but I met his crew. They'll both be happy, decides Garp the hero, and dies with a smile. Oh. Ace will not stop running. He can't look back. If he looks back he acknowledges that he's running, that he's being a coward, that he's doing all he promised not to do. If he doesn't, he's just watching Luffy and Nami's back. Luffy chokes Nami in front of him, panting, her burned arm's fist still clenched too tight around her weapon like she hasn't figured out a way to make herself let go yet. Luffy, I think they're getting him out dash. Water always makes me super tired, complains Luffy. How come it's not the same with him? It is, idiot, interjects Ace. They're just making sure he doesn't die, but I don't think he'll be able to fight for a good while. Good job, he aims at Nami, and she nods curtly and asks, where are we running to? Home, is Ace's first instinct, but the Moby D is beyond repair, probably. Still, home, please, I just want to go home, cries a part of him on repeat. I don't know. You don't know? I couldn't exactly plan the retreat from my cell, protests Ace, and Nami grimaces in acknowledgement as Luffy deflects a cannonball aimed for her head. Forward is our best bet, that's where my crew is dash. Good thing Zoro isn't here, mutters Nami, and Luffy laughs along. Nami, how'd you get here? He asks. I thought I wouldn't see everyone again for a long time. I was on a weather island. I just stole one of their thing, I heard, and it was your brother, I couldn't not come. Sorry I didn't head to Sabaody, Captain. Well, I don't mind. Thanks, says Ace wryly, blinking to get rid of the weird light spot in his vision. It doesn't go. Must be the exhaustion. I'm sure, laughs Nami weakly. But Luffy, how did dash? Hello, says Admiral Kizaru in front of them, and tilts his head at Nami and Luffy. Oh, we've met already, haven't we? Ace stops running just in time to avoid knocking into him, and watches the blood drain out of Nami's face. No dash, she whispers, and Ace is inclined to agree, so inclined. It was bad manners of you to escape last time, nods Kizaru. But it's really kind of you to show up now, I mean, that means I can finish the job, Sengoku'll be happy. I thought Kuma had done it but I guess he didn't. Really, Straw Hat, you and your crew are continuous pains in our side, mind you, if you two survived, the rest of your crew must have, too, they'll probably ask me to truly finish the job by finding the rest of them, that'll be tedious dash. Borsalino, says Akiji, sliding on a ramp of ice and stopping next to Kizaru. Ace is pretty sure his heart-stopping beating would be counterproductive, but it's not like he can help it. Marco the Phoenix just took down Vice Admiral Garp. Luffy freezes. What? No. Gramps dash. Annoying, says Kizaru. Did you get Don Quixote to rescue Sakazuki? He'll hate that. What do you mean, he took Gramps down dash, yells Luffy, and Akiji with one single movement freezes his mouth shut. Luffy, whispers Nami, horrified. Oh, no dash. Ace feels so far from his body he may as well already be dead. Marco killed Gramps, Luffy's going to die, they're all going to die. Leave this up to me? Asks Akiji. I've got a grudge against Straw Hat Luffy. Well, so do I, answers Kizaru conversationally, and they should be moving. Why aren't they moving? But his legs feel like lead and Luffy's mouth is frozen shut. I'm sorry, but I'd rather make sure Fire Fist Ace finally dies. Your track record with executing people isn't perfect, and your mistakes already brought down Eni's lobby, Kuzan, adds Kizaru. For a moment Akiji looks about to protest, and then he sighs, and his shoulders go down. That was mean, Borsalino. I don't bring up your mistakes in front of enemies. Ah, sorry. Go on, go about your business, I think I saw more impel down escapees over there, we're probably supposed to get them back in prison. Akiji sighs once again, pointedly, and then in a movement melts the ice around Luffy's mouth. Take that as a sign of respect for proving me wrong once, boy, he says, and walks away. And they're left in front of another admiral. Please, I just want to go home, thinks Ace, but asking has never granted him anything other than hate in his life. Jinbe owes so much to Whitebeard that he can't even begin to quantify it, and it just figures that in trying to repay his debt he'd earn a new one. He didn't expect it to be owed to Straw Hat Luffy, but it seems he is as full of surprises as his brother is. Jinbe guesses he should have foreseen it, maybe, given the amount of time Ace had spent rambling about Luffy's crazy adventures, but he figured that was just the natural unpredictability of children. It apparently wasn't. Nonetheless, debts are owed, and Whitebeard would most probably not be thankful to Jinbe for getting in his way when trying to help him with Sengoku. Luffy, however, and the rest of his group, are in very clear need of help, and Jinbe's as uninjured as one can be after hours of fighting in a war, so it's up to him to help. It's not like he can't escape Hancock easily enough, she hasn't seemed particularly enthused about actually fighting for a good while now, for whatever reasons. Well, those are not his to figure out, he ducks a particularly terribly aimed pistol kiss, and shatters the ice beneath him with one punch of fishman karate, tugging the ocean closer to him until it finally bursts free. Ace and Luffy are facing Kizaru, with Akiji still standing nearby enough to be worrying, and the ocean's both the safest and fastest way to reach them. They are, for obvious reasons, not a lot of fishmen among the Marines. He swims as fast he can, relying on his observation haki to lead the way, manipulating the water around to create currents that push him forward, and bursts from the water panting and just in time to deflect a ray of pure light with an enormous burst of water and ice that manages to weaken it just so, albeit spreading steam in the process. "Shark guy!" yells Straw Hat behind him, quickly followed by Ace letting out an incredulous, "Jinbe? Watch out!" calls someone, a female voice, and Jinbe hears and vaguely senses as both the brothers throw themselves to the ground. Ace bites back a scream of pain. Kizaru must have grazed him. "A fishman," breathes the female voice. "Captain, I may have a plan." Oh. It's not something she ever expected to be grateful about, but thank the seas and every higher being there possibly is, Nami knows fishmen. They swim fast, they breathe underwater, they're practically invincible underwater. Light can travel underwater, but slower. Light can travel underwater, but not in straight lines. Nami's a navigator. Nami's the future Pirate King's navigator, and the ocean is her home, and she knows it. She learned to fear it, she learned to study it, she learned to control it, and now, it's time to make that count. If she could only get her climatak to move, if she could get her hand to move. Just a bit more, just a little longer, she tells herself, but she's been saying that since the start of the war, and her body must have run out of adrenaline to offer her, that or her wounds are catching up to her. Sabayati wasn't that long ago, either. "Ace," she yells, and Kizaru's right there, he'll hear, but F that, she refuses to give up, and let herself or her captain or his brother die here. "Ace, is he an ally?" She tries to gesture towards the fishman, but she goes to move her wrist and ends up biting back a scream. The water didn't help, too much cold too suddenly on a too hot wound, and her arm burned still. Her wrist, Nojiko's bracelet, her last token of home, gone, and her exhaustion gives way to rage just enough for her to spin her climatak and create the biggest mirage she can do, covering her and Ace and Luffy. Her knees waver, her vision goes white at the pain, and Luffy catches her just in time. "Nami dash," he starts, worry on his face like he isn't bleeding from everywhere, like he hasn't been fighting for longer than her and Ace and maybe even Fing Akainu combined, and she refuses to let her tears fall, digs deep into the self-control Arlong had pierced into her, and repeats, "Ace." The desperation in her voice must show, because he startles towards her and lets out a whispered, "Yeah." Nami lowers her voice in kind and hopes the noise of the battlefield will be enough to cover it. "Then tell him to get you away, Kizaru won't reach in the ocean, and they're all trying to get you, and your crew will help, and dash," she inhales shakily, turns her gaze to Luffy, hopes he'll trust her. "We have to run, but if we do it together we'll die." "Yeah. Shark guy, take Ace," yells her captain before his brother can protest. Ace opens his mouth, but turns his head to see her mirage wavers and fall, and his face goes somber. He nods once as Kizaru zeroes in onto them once more. She doesn't think he was fooled, doesn't think he ever thought they had moved, but maybe he doesn't know how his light would interact with mirages. Nami sure doesn't. "Come now, don't make this so difficult," he says, and raises a finger towards Ace, light gathering at the edge with a high-pitched whine that Nami has yet to stop hearing in her nightmares. Just as the ray shoots forward, Jinbe grabs him, and they both plunge into icy waters. Nami has enough time to see Ace's body go limp before Kizaru sighs and she looks back towards him, fear paralyzing her. "Well, I guess Akiji will have to make himself useful in the end," he mutters, and disappears, following the underwater silhouettes of their allies no doubt. "Ace is strong, he'll make it," says Luffy, still holding her up with one hand. "But now, we should run." "Don't worry, I'll carry you." And Nami hasn't been able to see a good end to this since it started, but she thinks she can start to distinguish its edges, right now. It's shaped like her captain's smile. Oh. Edward will admit, it's been a long time since two brats yelled at him on the same day. Especially brats that are not his sons. He glances down to see two boys standing by him and Sengoku, visibly terrified, bloodied and soaked wet, and frowns. "Who are you?" snarls Sengoku, golden glow intensifying, and boy number 1 and 2 shrink down immediately. "I'm Dash," says the pink-haired one, and his companion immediately interrupts him by saying, "Not important," probably because he's the only one who has a modicum of survival instinct between the two. "And what are you doing here?" asks Edward, mildly interested. "I Dash," repeats the pink-haired one, and looks at Sengoku with confusion written in his eyes. "What are you doing? People are dying." Sengoku's conqueror's haki weighs on him instantly, and while his companion flinches and trembles, pink-haired boy doesn't seem to notice. "I wouldn't advise you to tell me what to do," spits Sengoku, and instead of cowed the boy just looks tired. "Garp just died," he states. Sengoku stills, for the briefest second. "What? No. protests the blonde boy in front of them. No, he's invincible, practically. Garp died, stresses the soldier in front of them. What are you doing? I'm your superior officer, boy dash. And your soldiers are dying. And your prisoner's still alive. And you didn't even fight, what did you do? How many dead until this stops? This is a war, spits out Sengoku. This is your war, on someone that died 20 years ago, and it just killed the man that had brought him in. Edward liked Garp. This is the Marines' war, and unless I'm mistaken about your uniform, that means it's yours too. Blonde boy scoffs, and pales when Sengoku's gaze zeroes in on him. No offense, sir, but your war ended before we were born, and it's useless, I see no point fighting ghosts. He manages to get out. That doesn't matter, stresses his partner. We're supposed to save lives, and you're just letting people die, for the sake of killing a legacy that isn't even his. And Edward. Oh, but Edward likes them. Looks like even you aren't immune to the new generation coming through, Buddha, he laughs, and Sengoku doesn't even bother refocusing on him, locked in onto the two teenagers and shaking with outrage. You dash, he hisses, and raises a fist towards them that they have no hope of avoiding. Well, it was worth a shot, mutters pink-haired one to his partner as he clutches his sleeve in trembling hands. Sorry about getting us killed. I probably wouldn't strike down two of your own soldiers when your entire war is being broadcasted worldwide, Fleet Admiral, comments red-hair Shanks from the deck of his ship, and Edward forces down his coughs to grin even brighter than he already was. Oh. No, mutters Buggy the Clown from the middle of the crowd of freed prisoners he happened to be hiding in, eyes stuck on the flag of the new ship joining the battle. No, this BSTRD isn't here, I said this couldn't get worse and I meant it, he isn't here dash. Hello, says Admiral Akiji. It's my job to capture you back, but I think it might be easier to kill you. No, laments Buggy. Red hair, growls Sengoku, looking at another one of Roger's legacies. Are you aware of the consequences of your acts? You can't scare me, Admiral, smiles Shanks. I declared war on you a long time ago. This is none of your business, warns Sengoku, but Shanks raises an eyebrow, at Whitebeard and then at him, and says, well, that's never stopped me before. Ah, brat, laughs Whitebeard. I was wondering if you'd show up. Old debts, shrugs Shanks, and if his hand on his sword wasn't enough of a threat, the waves of conquerors rolling off him are a sign Sengoku would be foolish not to read. Can't let the old men have all the fun. The new generation's coming faster than I thought, I have to leave my mark while I still can. His gaze settles back on the two soldiers at their side. You'd make a terrible pirate, he says to the pink-haired one. It's lucky you're a Marine. Pink hair just shrinks before his gaze, and sways from side to side, eyes still clutching his companion's sleeve. The blonde one isn't doing much better, Sengoku notices, and scoffs and boils at the same time. Ah, you've talked long enough, coughs Whitebeard, blood dribbling from his lips. His grin is stained with red and it's never been more true to him. Sengoku wishes he was dead already. Actually, Sengoku wishes Gold Ace had died long ago, and spared all of them the trouble. Never heard of parley, I take it, asks Shanks, with no small amount of mockery. Wars don't end with parley, boy, scoffs Whitebeard. The pink-haired boy chokes, and gets frantically elbowed by his partner when it seems like he's about to open his mouth again. Sengoku glares at them, not like that stopped them earlier. It at least makes him feel better to see them shrink and tremble. He has to admit to being impressed that they're still standing, with all the conquerors around, but maybe Whitebeard and Shanks aren't using theirs on the both of them right now. It's certainly not that they're strong enough to withstand it, these are paradise soldiers, and what people call strength in paradise is laughable. Well, it's not going to end with you, either, retorts Shanks to Whitebeard, shaking Sengoku out of his thoughts. The ground shakes under their collective feet at his words, as Whitebeard slams his weapon down on the laminated bit of ground he stands on. Careful, brat, he warns, and Sengoku stares at him, disdainful. Blood pouring from every inch of his chest, his crew drowning or dead or fleeing, what does he think is going to happen? This is a war the Marines were set to win, and they're both too old to believe in miracles. But Whitebeard, for all his power, has always been a naive fool. This isn't the whole of the Marines, points out Shanks. And if your boy escapes, and your family with him, by some miracle, what are they going to do without your shadow to hide in? Whitebeard grits his teeth, for a moment. You won't make me believe you know nothing about sacrifices, boy, he says finally, the weight of his words palpable, as his gaze falls to where Shanks' arm had been, once. And you'd better not forget about politics, Emperor, says Shanks pointedly, and turns to Sengoku, his smirk a headache wrapped in tacky gift wrap. How would you like it, Fleet Admiral, if we made a deal? Oh. Swimming feels like dying, in a painfully aware way. Ace holds his breath and holds on. The cold of the water sinks into his bones easily enough that it feels like the fire in his veins has been snuffed out entirely. The ocean drags him down, tears at him, and, helpless in Jinbe's arms, Ace closes his eyes. He ate the fruit, he bears the curse, and so for a moment he allows himself to be tired, if only because he has an excuse. Marco the Phoenix just took down Vice Admiral Garp, repeats Akiji, bored, in his head, disinterested and unaffected. Ace doesn't have much hate left in him, doesn't have much of anything if not exhaustion, really but he thinks he could muster some for Akiji if he tried. He thinks. It must be lucky that he's always been so awful at observation hockey. It at least means he didn't have to feel Gramps die. But then again, maybe it's worst, to have had to be told, to not even know, and he was family, shouldn't Ace have known? The salt water in his wounds hurts, he notices distantly. It's been ages since he drank anything and crying would change nothing, it changed nothing earlier, he tells himself. Be better, for once, he pleads, be rational. This is the worst time for grief, but Ace has never been known for his level-headedness. Gramps was always there. Ace lost Sabo so quickly, knew him so little, but Garp was always there, and what does it mean, that now he isn't? Gramps can't be gone. He's always been there. But this is what war is, and what has always been, what seems permanent, or invincible, will always in the end be taken down. Ace should know this. Just because some people are larger than life, larger than world, bright and blinding and rising so fast, does not mean they will not dim and fade and fall. But he'd hoped. He'd believed. He hadn't doubted, for once, that Gramps would survive, and be safe. All of his sorrow had been directed at his crew, even with his grandfather shaking by his side, wrecked by guilt and anger. And now. The water feels suffocating, even made smoother and more welcoming by Jinbe, but Ace hasn't felt air reach his lungs since the start of the war. He thinks that maybe if he exhaled, out of his chest would come out ashes and smoke, acrid and dark, feels burned out, like not even his embers are left, and it has nothing to do with his wounds, nothing to do with his captivity, and everything to do with the sinking corpses he can feel Jinbe dodge even with his eyes closed. This is war, and Ace was and is and always will be a child of violence. Roger's last legacy was blood on the executioner's blade, his father's flag on his back spells comfort for him and blood and devastation to others. This is war, but somewhere amongst the violence Ace taught himself kindness, because his brothers deserved as much. Now the weight of it chills his bones. Actions have consequences, he guesses, and his world is not a kind one, is not a soft one. He wishes his empathy levels were lower and his guilt gone, or better yet wishes he could reach hide in his father's coat, whisper an apology that would probably be laughed away. Loneliness is his most vicious enemy, guilt his oldest friend, and together they exhaust him so surely that the only thing Ace wants to do is sleep this nightmare off, and one day wake up, or maybe not, if it turns out that it was all real after all. But lies are a gift only Sabo knew how to yield. Ace never allowed comfort draped in empty promises, even for himself. Better to die honest than a liar, would say Ace to Sabo when they were younger, the one lesson from Garp he'd ever taken to heart. GOLD, Roger had been a liar, after all. Better to lie than to die, his brother had always retorted, but look who's still alive to remember that now. Sabo? Sabo, and Gramp, and Pops, soon, surely. And all because of him. It would be a waste to die now, Ace tells himself, and focuses on the salt in his wounds. The end draws nearer. Oh. The sky is as blue as it can, and Marco wishes he didn't want to fly away. The blood on his hands feels heavy, or maybe it's the exhaustion weighing him down. He averts his eyes from the corpses in front of him and flies up, once again, eyes scanning the battlefield and not lingering on the bodies on the ground. He pointedly doesn't look towards Pops, who had all but forbidden him from coming back and fighting by his side. It hurts, of course it does, but it's his father, it's his captain, and Marco will not let his last act against him be mutiny. Red Hair arrived minutes earlier, something got in the middle of this battle of giants enough for him to finally make an entrance, but Marco was the one who closed Thatch's eyes and he knows better than to hope for miracles. His family is scattered all over, but ships are starting to gather, people are starting to retreat, taking injured and mementos back with them. It feels like the tide is finally ebbing. Whether the sand it leaves in his wake will be stained with blood, or not, well, that hasn't been decided yet. It's almost a physical ache for Marco to try and solve this, to throw himself at someone, to bargain and plead and make things right. First mate through and through, would laugh Jozu, and Marco misses home and the illusion that it'd never fall apart so keenly for a second that he almost forgets to hold himself up. The Marines are running out of bullets. He lets himself come down a little, stays still for a moment, searching for his loneliest brother. Ace is distant, almost close to burning out if Marco's hockey is right, not doing much better than his brother, both of them beaten and bruised and yet impossibly unbroken. Marco recognizes Gen by his side, Kizaru after him, and hesitates on whether to hold his breath or let it go. Hesitates on whether to go or not. "Phoenix!" calls a voice from the ground, raw like it's been screaming for hours now. "Phoenix, hey!" Marco looks down, and it's Ivankov from the Revolutionary Army? "Phoenix," they say, and the urgency in their voice is out of place on them until he spots the blood on their clothes. "Can you take him away? He's small, can you get him somewhere safe?" Marco frowns, lands in what is more of a stumble to the ground than an actual landing. "Why would I do that?" he states more than he asks, and Ivankov straightens and says, "You're going there anyway, aren't you? What's it costing you to save his life? Can't you do it yourself? I'll go and protect yours if you take him away, how about that?" "And I'll owe you," suggests Ivankov, and Marco blinks. He can't save all of his family, he can't solve anything, but saving a life and gaining possible leverage on the revolutionaries, right now, sounds an awful lot like a victory. Oh. If Kuzan is being honest with himself, which he usually isn't, he could probably stop Straw Hat. He did it once, after all, and that had been when the boy wasn't on the verge of passing out, and had his crew by his side. It would be simple, laughingly so. Tedious, yes, but few things aren't these days. He doesn't really know why he's not doing it. The reason is rooted somewhere in Borsellino's disdain, he thinks, somewhere in Sengoku's endless lecture on Nico Robin's survival, only made longer now that Eni's lobby's ruins stand glaringly obvious under eternal daylight. It's rooted in the lack of interest Kuzan has for most things, these days. It's rooted in the fact that Straw Hat is one thing Kuzan thinks would make the world less dull. This boy, this foolish boy, Kuzan knows he wouldn't mind seeing him fail, but he thinks he might like seeing him succeed. He's passionate, is the thing, muses Kuzan as he freezes yet another group of escapees, and pointedly turns his back to Strawhat's escape. Monkey D. Luffy believes in things, concepts, feelings, dreams, and that seems to be enough for him to decide to change the world, and for the world to let itself be changed. It's so foreign, to Kuzan, who has a hard time believing in anything hard enough to act. Ice is slippery, though, cold and always melting. He doesn't think it's unforgivable. And if it is, well, he doesn't particularly care. Justice will come out on top, one way or another, justice always wins. That's the rule, isn't it? Whoever wins, becomes justice, said Doflamingo, and Kuzan's never been picky. And so Kuzan lets another child run. Oh. Luffy runs and runs and runs, his eyes keep getting blurry and Nami keeps hissing through her teeth when he touches her arm, the one that's red and bleeding. He tried to get her to let go of her climb attack earlier because she looked to be clenching it hard enough to hurt, but she shook her head so violently he decided that it wasn't worth it. He wishes everyone was here, Robin would make her a new arm, or Usopp, or Frankie even, or Chopper would heal her, or Zoro would carry her softer, or Sanji. He's not as useful, without them, they're supposed to do what he can't. But Luffy knew, going into it, that he would do it all alone, and having Nami there is a gift he didn't expect already. Luffy pants Nami in his ear, hand clutching his shoulder tight enough that it kinda hurts, but everything hurts and this is Nami, so Luffy doesn't mind. "Luffy, do you know who our allies are? Where are we running to?" "The sea," answers Luffy, frowning. "You'll get us away if I can get us there, right?" A half-broken laugh from Nami, and Luffy just frowns harder. "I'll try, Captain. The crew isn't there." "Ace's crew will help," says Luffy, and dodges a wave of incoming bullets last minute, only just remembering they'd hurt Nami. He jumps up high, and the landing hurts, he stumbles and almost falls down. "Luffy!" shrieks Nami, concerned, but he doesn't stop. She doesn't tell him to stop, either. "They'll help," he repeats. "People have done nothing but help, ever since he got here, Buggy and Bentham and Ivankov, Scissor Guy and Fish Guy." "Well, I guess, but we need a ship," sighs Nami. "And, somewhere to go, there must be an organized retreat somewhere, they wouldn't have come without planning how to go." Nami's smarter than him, Luffy knows, and he's never been gladder to have her here, if only because it means he has someone to take care of the thinking for him. It's less clear-cut now that Ace is free, now that there's no more fight and more fleeing. Ace never used to flee and so Luffy never quite learned to, but Nami spent so long hiding and stealing, and she'll know what to do, he's sure. To the sea is a good idea, for now. Until Ace dash. "Straw Hat!" screams a voice nearby, and they both look up to see a masked man with hands stained red and desperation in his eyes. "Come on, follow us." He's leading a bunch of people, register Luffy distantly. "Luffy, who are they?" whispers Nami furiously, and Luffy just shrugs. He doesn't remember them. "Come on," says the man again. "Captain would kill us if we let anything happen to his younger brother." Nobody notices him when he steps onto the battlefield. Teach isn't surprised. It's not that he's hard to notice. What good would be a king that can be ignored? It's that he wants to be ignored. Marineford is sinking, he notices. Marineford used to be organized, 2 sides and 1 motive and 1 clear outcome, and now it's chaos. Teach thrives on chaos. He's surrounded by indebted prisoners, soon-to-be allies, soon-to-be crewmates, soon-to-be tools, and he towers over fallen soldiers and steps on corpses he would have called family once, and finally. He's dreamt of this for so long. It's starting, it's been started. No one can stop him, now, not with Whitebeard coughing up his lungs and sacrificing himself for his ridiculous so-called family, not with the worst of Impel down at his side, not with the power of gravity pulling them all down. There's blood on his hands and he's too busy to wipe it away. There are his goals, just in his reach, and the horizon hasn't ever looked so accessible. He walks on, towards this confrontation of emperors, of remnants, of idealists, and nobody notices him. Nobody gasps, nobody screams. Shadows are silent, death is invisible, and he's not king, not yet. Darkness suits him just fine. Marineford sets itself aflame for people that should have learned to loose, for ideals that should have disappeared. Out of the smoke he will rise, and from the ashes he will build. Nobody notices him when he approaches. Teach swears it'll be the last time, and grins. Oh. It's lucky that Helmeppo doesn't need to think about breathing to do it, otherwise he'd have fainted several times over in the past 10 minutes alone. The air weighs too much, he won't stop shaking, he keeps faltering, vision getting blurry and only being wrenched awake by Kobe's death grip on his wrist. They don't belong here. Emperors, remnants, legends and symbols of past and present eras, and in the middle, the 2 of them, naive little soldiers, with too big a heart for one and too little a brain for the other. They don't belong here, but Helmeppo's never belonged anywhere, not really, so what does it matter? They're here, and Kobe is shaking by him, and people are discussing the end of the war like that can happen, like wars can end well, or end at all. I'm not letting Fire Fist go, growls Sengoku, and Red Hair sighs, like this all very burdensome but to be expected, like they aren't deciding people's fate. Helmeppo's never been a leader, and never will be, he always knew. Here, standing in between conquerors, he feels his certainty cement. Of course you're letting him go, states Red Hair. It's either that, or you get 2 emperors on your hands. He shrugs a little. I mean, that's already happening, but you wouldn't want me to get serious, I don't think so. Captain, warns mid-voice one of Red Hair's crew, as Sengoku tightens his fists and lets out a low, now don't get too cocky, kid. Whitebeard laughs, more vicious than amused. You're letting him go, repeats Shanks, steady. A commander let go, for his captain, that's a fair deal. Helmeppo holds his breath. For his captain? Repeats Sengoku, and Shanks spares Whitebeard a glance before his gaze resettles on Sengoku. Well, I assumed, he says. And wouldn't it make a prettier headline than admitting you killed all those babies for nothing, 20 years ago? Great job, by the way. Sengoku grits his teeth. At Helmeppo's side, Kobe makes a noise, anger or grief or horror. You're not that good at negotiations, brat, comments Whitebeard from where he stands. His grin is gone, face serious, warnings ringing loud enough for even Helmeppo to hear. And you keep offering sacrifices that aren't yours to make. I only have 1 arm left, shrugs Shanks. And it'd get you both what you want, won't it? The Marine's reputation saved, your children safe. It's a fair deal. Except the part where I die, points out Whitebeard, but he doesn't seem mad, doesn't seem anything else than vaguely amused, vaguely tired. You're just like Captain Roger, retorts Shanks with grief and anger and resignation hidden in the corners of his voice. Already dying, and if you can get something out of it, you will, won't you? Whitebeard looks at him, and then over to the battlefield, something indescribable in his eyes. Even covered in blood, spitting it out, riddled with stab and bullet wounds, Helmeppo can't imagine him any other way than regal, than terrifying, than immovable. Conquerors don't die, he doesn't think so, but then Gold Roger did, he supposes. I could simply drown them all, he says, smile dangerous. Even Akiji can't freeze so many tsunamis. Try, pirate, I'd like to see it, warns Sengoku, and seems as lost as Helmeppo feels when Whitebeard laughs at him outright. I suppose a deal would be the cleaner option, he mutters. You're soft, Red Hair. Sure, agrees Red Hair. The stark red of his scar belies his agreement. Helmeppo doesn't think he could have gotten where he is, sitting at this table of giants and playing the middleman, by being any kind of soft. Fleet Admiral? What do you say? And Sengoku stops glowing for a little, loses the too focused look he's had since Helmeppo's been able to see him, raises an eyebrow. Says, I'll bite. Oh. Inazuma wakes up halfway across the sky, and doesn't startle and fall to his death purely because he probably doesn't have enough blood left to do so. What the F dash, he does wheeze out, instantly out of breath and not convinced the blue flames in front of his eyes aren't byproducts of his imagination. Phoenix. Yes, calls out a voice, focused and sounding amused despite it. Hello. I'm doing your friend a favor. I guessed, answers Inazuma, and closes his eyes tightly in the hope to get his head to stop spinning, and his thoughts to stop swirling, which neither of them does, of course. Life isn't that easy. Hold still, would you? I'm getting you out of here. Of Marineford? Asks Inazuma, incredulous, breathing fast still. They're high up. Inazuma likes to have something under his feet, preferably solid, liquid if he has to, definitely not gaseous. The battlefield is busy, messy, bloody, littered with discarded weapons and allies. Inazuma raises his head to see Red Hair Shanks discussing with Whitebeard and the fleet admiral, and oh, okay, he's missed a lot. There are 2 emperors involved now? What the F dash? What the F dash, he repeats hoarsely, more to get his indignation heard than any other purpose. You've said, yes. And I said hold still. You wouldn't survive the fall, I don't think. He says it diplomatically, if a little annoyed, but Inazuma hears the message well enough, and holds off protesting until opening his talons isn't the only thing it'd take for the first mate to kill him. You said you were getting me out? Everyone, but you also, yes, answers Phoenix, almost too calm, too detached. Inazuma frowns. Marineford's a death trap. You don't escape those, he states, almost derisively, and interrupts himself to cough until his breath is well and truly gone. He's cold, he registers distantly, or numb. Stop talking, your throat's barely held together as it is, orders Marco, which has to be a lie since Inazuma can talk, but he tries to protest and chokes on what he realizes is his own blood again when he tries to breathe. Okay. Maybe there's some truth in it, then. And death trap's an exaggeration, anyway, shrugs Marco, like he's not flying over corpses, like Inazuma's throat isn't pouring blood, like this is everyday nightmares instead of the end, maybe with a capital E, even. We wouldn't have come if we didn't have a way to go. Inazuma raises an eyebrow, but it's not like the other can see it, and he'd rather not die trying to verbalize his skepticism, please and thank you in advance. He's not Sabo, always dying to get the last word, though maybe Sabo grew out of it. Inazuma wouldn't know. He spent so long in Impel Down, long enough for children to grow up, for the world to change, get kinder and faster and bloodier all at once. Maybe his doubt is apparent enough without words, though. You're going to be fine, Phoenix speaks up. It's going to end soon, anyway. And sure, it will. Inazuma's seen so many wars, some he caused willingly and some he ran away from, and they all ended, one way or another. That's war do, they end, themselves, or people, who cares? War ends, but the question is whether it'll be won, whether there'll still be people left to claim the victory, still some energy left to rejoice. Joy is so fleeting and hope not nearly as strong as the stories made it to be, grief lingers and anger takes roots. War ends, but they don't end well, not in Inazuma's experience. This one, monumental as it may be, world-changing as it may be, unfair as it may be, will be no exception, those don't exist. Inazuma's a revolutionary. He knows perfectly well that history is written by the winners, that revolutions, uprisings, aren't nearly as neat and straightforward as people have been told. Sometimes they fail, and sometimes they don't, and people die regardless. War ends, but life is not a fairy tale, and Phoenix should know better than to expect a happy ever after. But then pirates have always dreamed, haven't they? Oh. Deuce wraps his hand around Monkey D. Luffy's wrist, and barely winces at the grime and blood he can feel against his palm, distantly registers the boy's pained inhale and the shout of, "Careful," from the girl on his back. Come on, to the ship," he says instead. "Can you all run still?" "Straw Hat, we can take her, if you want," he says, jerking his head towards the redhead. Luffy frowns at him, tightens his hold. "No," he says, and Deuce can see ace in the rise of his shoulders, it's uncanny. "All right," he relents, and is about to move again, gesturing for Cordelia and Skull to follow, when Straw Hat's crewmate shakes her head. "Luffy, don't be reckless," she protests. "You're exhausted and they're in much better shape, let them." "But Nami dash. We're already following them into what could be a death trap for all we know," scolds Nami. "Let me down, we can't have you collapse." "I won't let you fall," protests Straw Hat, sounding almost hurt. His companion softens. "I know that," she says. "I'm not doubting you, but let me take care of myself, Captain. I won't be a burden." Deuce watches them, urgency screaming at the back of his mind. They've no time, and he hasn't gotten to ace once, hasn't been useful even once. Cordelia's hand finds his shoulder, and he exhales, once, relaxes his grip on his sword. Nami climbs down her captain's back. "Oh, no," says the part of Deuce that once would have been a doctor out loud as he sees her arm properly. "It's burned, flesh melted right off, and is that melted metal in the wound? Can she even feel anything beyond the pain? Can she move her hand?" She raises an eyebrow at him, he shakes his head. It's all going so fast, and he can't let this matter. Not until Ace is back somewhere he can see him, not until they've left this place, not until he's apologized and screamed at his former captain, not until this is over. Sees, let this end. "I can run," she states, "if it comes down to that. But fight, I'm afraid I can't do much about that." "Oh, we're firmly running," laughs Cordelia, a bit of hysteria piercing through, helping Nami onto her back while her captain watches with some sort of unease. "Don't you worry about that." "Where are we even going?" "Our ship," answers Cordelia. "Most of the crew is still down, we stayed underwater instead of rising. It's coded. It should be safe, it's an escape route ship." "You had more?" asks Nami incredulously. "But what Rose was already an armada?" "Emperors," shrugs Cordelia. Her hand left Deuce's shoulder. "He keeps having to remember to breathe." "We should go," interrupts Deuce. "We should go, we're out in the open, it's not safe dash." "But Ace," protests Skull, speaking up for the first time. "The captain dash." "We can't do anything," replies Deuce, gritting his teeth. "And Captain's stronger, he's always been stronger, what good is rushing into it, and dying?" "But, he's alone," says Skull, and, in a stiller voice, he was crying. He was crying. "Well," answers Deuce, and has to remember not to squeeze his eyes shut and pretend this is all a very elaborate nightmare. "Well," he repeats. "Well, we can only hope." Deuce dash. He's facing an admiral. "What are we going to do?" "An admiral, Skull, and when we faced a warlord he sacrificed himself to hold him back. We're stronger. Is it enough?" Skull looks down. Deuce aches for simpler times. "An admiral, Skull," repeats Deuce, breathless with worry. Cordelia sends him a look, and he avoids her gaze. No one has ever had time for Deuce when he was breaking down, except for Ace, but Ace isn't here now, is he? "Ace is strong," declares Luffy, confident despite it all, standing tall despite the wounds he sports. Deuce wishes he was strong enough to hope as much as the boy does. "He won't lose. He promised me." "Of course not," agrees Cordelia, her voice so much more assured than Deuce ever managed to make his sound. "We should get moving." "And Deuce can't breathe, Deuce can't breathe, Deuce can't. And Ace isn't dead yet, and he's still the first mate, and Ace isn't home yet. We should get moving," he repeats, eyes searching for a flicker of a flame, for a hint of a laugh, for a hope he's not wise enough to let out of his sight. "He'll meet us there. And he will. He has to." Jinbe surfaces from the water, almost gets a ray of light in the face, subsequently dives back down. He didn't exactly think this through, now did he? In his defense, well, there wasn't exactly any time to think it through. There had been Whitebeard's orders and Marco's defeated shoulders, and Ace's grit teeth and Monkey D. Luffy's frozen mouth, still stuck in a shout. Jinbe traveled with Tiger, and thinking things through, well, he's learned how to, had to with a crew under his command, but bad habits are hard to shake, they say. Ace in his arms starts to stir, and Jinbe SCKS in a breath, frowns. Ace can't hold his breath forever, and he doesn't, he has nowhere to go. He doesn't know what Whitebeard's plan is, if he even had one, though he had to have one, didn't he? There's nowhere that's safe, here. Neither side is willing to give up, they'll fight to the end. Sometimes Jinbe is so deeply tired of fighting. They need a shelter or a hideout or a miracle, but those are rare, those are earned, those are fleeting. The sea is an ally, for now, but Ace can't hold his breath forever, and Jinbe promised, in so many words, that he'd get him back home. Straw Hat freed him. Straw Hat came and Straw Hat trusted him, and so does Ace, and Jinbe. Jinbe closes his eyes for the briefest moment. Surfaces. "Knew you'd come out eventually," says Kizaru, towering over them as Ace SCKS in a breath, and another, and another. "Well, you've certainly made this annoying. Loyalty, Wouldn't have expected that out of a warlord," and he raises an arm, light gathering at the edge. Jinbe dives back down out of instinct, the ray misses Ace's temple by mere centimeters. He distantly hears Kizaru let out a disapproving sound. "I thought Fire Fist didn't run," he sighs, theatrical. Ace, in Jinbe's arms, manages to freeze, even weakened by the water. "Now come on," taunts Kizaru. "Or all those pretty hidden ships are going to go up, in flames. Light can set things on fire, did you know?" "Hidden ships?" wonders Jinbe, just as Ace begins to struggle. He pays him no mind, focuses his haki, and yes, if he looks closely enough, there are ships, just at the edge of his range, deep in the waters. Obviously getaway ships, far away from the battle. Not heavily protected either, if the lack of Haki signature on them is anything to go by. Vulnerable, easy to sink. Jinbe can't let them. What good is rescuing Ace if he's the only one that survives? Whitebeard is staying behind, they all know, but the rest of his crew, an Emperor's army, can't just die here. These people have protected his home for years. He rises, slowly at first and then all at once. The moment they're out in the open, away from the water, Ace's body bursts in flames, droplets on his skin and hair vaporizing with a hiss. He lands firmly on the ice, and ducks down just low enough to devoid a hole in his shoulder. Finally, comments Kizaru, and Ace scowls at him, lunges with impressive speed, throws a fist at Kizaru. Kizaru takes a step back, reappears 2 strides away from Ace's back. Reckless, he tuts, and raises a hand towards the base of Ace's skull while the younger tries to regain footing and turn around. Jinbe runs forward, yanks Ace forward by the wrist. He collapses against the ice with a worrying crack, but at least he's alive. Kizaru raises an eyebrow. Jinbe catches his breath. You have an opponent right here, Admiral, he challenges, and prays that Ace behind will get up and run. Kizaru hums a little. No, I don't think so, he says, and before he can move Jinbe grabs his shoulder and slams him against the ground with a Haki-reinforced grip. Kizaru coughs, trying to catch his breath, and scowls. Unpolite, he scolds, and Jinbe has to close his eyes against the ray of light he becomes for a moment, just so he doesn't end up blind. He feels heat incoming and throws a wall of water up out of instinct, but the water is too far and the light too fast. He settles with biting back the scream when the ray impacts the arm he threw up as a last-second defense. Now, no running, continues Kizaru, and Jinbe hears the characteristic sound of his teleportation of a kind, opens his eyes to see Ace crouched low, still on the ground form where Jinbe threw him, out of breath and bloodied, Kizaru in front of him, rays of light whining and whining and whining, and he won't. He's not going to be able to dodge, understands Jinbe in a single moment. He watches on, eyes wide, at Ace, exhausted and wounded, and wonders if this how he fails. Ace looks so young, still. Goodbye, Gold Ace, murmurs Kizaru, mockingly ceremonial, and Jinbe lunges, half a step too late, as always. He promised. Oh. The shot lands at his feet with a bang, and Borsalino holds back at the last second. Now, says Ben Beckman, stepping fully in between him and Fire Fist. I really wouldn't recommend doing that. Borsalino glances back. Sure enough, he can see a sniper's figure, focused on him, the faintest hint of smoke coming out of the gun. He grimaces. So your captain decided to play after all, It's not like him to step into people's matters, he comments, and Beckman shrugs at him, seemingly disinterested. Ben Beckman, if Borsalino remembers well, is too FING smart for everyone else's own good. You have new orders, he announces, and Borsalino raises an eyebrow and then a second one, for good measure. From you? Beckman only grins. He resembles his captain only in the worst ways, muses Borsalino. Well, your little interlude's been fun, he says out loud instead. You'll step aside, now. I think you'll find I won't. This is one very polite young man, and my captain likes him, you see. Nods Borsalino. But I have a duty, and as much as I'd like to I can't shirk it. Beckman steps forward, a little. You have new orders, I said, he repeats. His hand isn't even on his gun, and Borsalino eyes the calm of his shoulders and sighs, just a little. How troublesome. Sakazuki would rush forward, would get himself killed perhaps, but Borsalino shrugs a bit, glances towards his only superior officer. Frowns. Sengoku stands too still, anger drained out of him, and he stands out from the frenzy of the battlefield. Whitebeard smiles at him, wry and hateful and grudgingly respectful. Red Hair is nowhere to be seen. It's just the two of them, this duo of giants, and the ground isn't shaking nearly enough for them to be actually fighting. There haven't been any tremors in the air for a while, now that Borsalino thinks about it. Something happened, he realizes distantly. And I missed it. Few things go by too fast for him, but he missed this. He says, turning back to Beckman. A truce? For this? He gestures at Ace's still crumbled form. The boy is shaking, there's blood under his nails from where they've dug into his palms. A truce, for this? For this pale vestige of what had once shone so bright? Whitebeard's a fool, it's well known, but Sengoku usually isn't. Do you care? Retorts Beckman, but he doesn't seem to expect an answer. It's a fair point, Borsalino doesn't, not really. Justice is something he believes, something he joined the Marines for, once, but it's lost his shine since then, and he's tired of repolishing it. So what if his justice is muddled? Don't look at the sun's rays from too close and they won't burn you. If this is justice enough for the fleet admiral, well, it's good enough for Borsalino, he guesses. He laughs. How wasteful. Beckman looks at him with narrowed eyes. He might hate him, Borsellino realizes with the kind of disinterest that always accompanies those realizations. People despise people for all sorts of reasons, and then they call those morals or ethics or justice. Borsellino used to bother, too, and then he didn't. He's had his time being righteous, it had gotten tedious. It had gotten hard. Who has the time for those kinds of things? Sakazuki is blind and Kuzan is naive, and Borsellino is tired. They make fine friends, the three of them. A truce, he repeats, and Beckman from the back of his throat makes a noise of dissent. No. No? A sacrifice, he states, his voice calm and measured and falsely indifferent. There's something under there, anger or disappointment maybe, but Ben Beckman's smart, as shifty as his captain, and Borsellino gives up on understanding him just as he starts to try. Instead he laughs. He lets out, deeply amused by this masquerade of a victory. He tilts his head back towards the sky. And now what do we do? Beckman tilts his head right, then left, like he's listening for bells that haven't rung yet. What else? We wait. Oh. Nami grits her teeth for what feels like the 100th time, and probably is, now that she thinks about it. This day, she mutters under her breath. The woman carrying her laughs. Nami doesn't know her name, because that would be too good, to know the name of the person she's entrusting her life to. Don't worry, we'll get out of here soon enough, she reassures, and Nami doesn't believe her, not one bit, but she appreciates the white lie nonetheless. Instead of answering, she casts her eyes to the battlefield around them. Things are winding down, it seems. It was easier to see, when she was up in the air next to Ace, Marineford's arena easy to decipher. It was easier to bear, too, the blood not as striking, the yells and grunts muddled, the details lost. She wonders what it says about the Marines, that their fleet admiral isn't willing to see the wounds he's ordered. That he's a coward. Not that Nami has any room to judge. She's a coward herself, after all. And soon enough she tears her gaze away from cut limbs and slashed eyes and unmoving corpses, casts it up and far away. She winces when she spots Akiji, almost instinctively for all that she's faced him twice only, but his back is turned to them and this particular bit of luck doesn't seem to want to turn against them right now. That's all she can see. She sighs, had hoped to spot Ace somewhere, or his fishman ally. But hopefully their disappearance means they're safe, means they're done, it has to. She glances at Luffy, running next to them, dodging and sending back bullets and distributing punches even though his knuckles are bleeding, and hopes, for his sake. She hadn't wanted to be a burden, but she's well out of the fight now, and the other three seem intent on covering them as they retreat, masked man securing the path ahead with brutality she wouldn't have expected, Luffy and the other stranger at their backs. Beaten and bruised and tired, all of them, and Nami misses her crew so strikingly for a moment she has to bite back tears. Luffy's there, but he looks like he does when the fight is over, and Nami doesn't know who's going to patch him up, where they're going after this, what's the plan? She wants something steady at her side, and her family is so far away. But no matter. She won't have the luxury of rest, she's a navigator, and they're escaping through the sea. She's a navigator, and they're carrying her captain, and Nami hasn't led Luffy wrong, not yet. Not ever. She closes her eyes, tilts her head to catch the wind, frowns at the way it's changing too rapidly. A tornado, so suddenly? But if Akiji's ice was going to create one it would have happened ages ago. So why are the winds shifting, the air rushing like something massive is coming? It's weather, and Nami for all her faults knows weather. Nami knows the grand line, this isn't supposed to happen. It's like, something is skiing the air in. But what? And more importantly, for what? Oh. Marco lands and has to wrench himself upright, arms heavy and legs laden with tension. He managed to get Inazuma to an escape team, fishmen going back and forth between the battlefield and the hidden ships, and now he stands disoriented and at a loss for what to do. Against his will, his eyes get dragged back to his captain. The last words they exchanged were hurried, almost stern, and he aches for a kinder goodbye, but beyond it all Pops is the captain, and Marco is the first mate, and their duty is to their crew, always. All else could fail, all else could burn, all else could die, and as long as his crew's flag still flies, as long as he still draws breath, as long as Whitebeard's reign has not been declared over, his duty is to the crew. He bows his head against the weight of a truth he's known for years, and reaches with Haki towards his father's comforting presence, for what may well be the last time. Preemptive grief strikes him and he rejects it in a single breath, to the crew, to his family while he can still call them family. What point is there in rushing tragedy? It'll come soon enough. The end is near but bells have not yet tolled, the sky darkens, and Marco is not foolish enough to beg the storm he's been heading towards not to break. He straightens. He gets up. He breathes. His lungs burn and he bursts into flames one last time, and rises. Phoenixes rise from ashes, and sometimes they create them, even. Pops from far away slams Mirakumajiri down onto the ground, and even from the air Marco feels the shockwave go through the ground. Everyone! He calls out. The battlefield freezes for a moment, people turning to stare at him. Marco freezes, feeling impossibly lonely in the air, and hopes, against everything he's ever learned, for a miracle. For all those years, I was honored that you called me your father. But my era lasted long enough. It's time for the young to soar, now. As such he declares, and Marco wishes, for him to stop, right now. Isn't it a father's job to protect his children? As such, these are my last orders to you. Miracles are hard-earned, and Marco's already gotten too many of them. Go, sail the seas. The future is yours to mold, its treasures yours to find. Escape. Be free, be happy. As your captain And Marco can only stare, and stare, and stare. His flames roar to life around him, scream something Marco would never let himself say, for fear of hurting his father further. There's a plea stuck at the back of his throat, and something is wrong, something is wrong, something is wrong. I officially declare the Whitebeard pirates disbanded. This isn't how it's supposed to go. Why is the world so still? What? Marco dives as fast as he can towards his father's unprotected back, where he usually spends his fights, heart beating in his throat, warnings bells ringing in his ears, the focus he'd extended towards his father's Haki screaming at him. He flies fast, and who cares if it's mutiny, the crew is gone, his duty taken away even as he was clutching onto it as tight as he could. Who cares? This is his father. He reaches out, flames cold and focused and revengeful. But he falls short, and Akainu, almost surging out of nowhere, sinks a molten lava fist into Whitebeard's chest. Old guy's gonna die, isn't he? Pants out Straw Hat, as they stand on the edge of the water, hidden away from sight. Deuce frowns at him, turning from staring at Whitebeard's silhouette in the distance, too far away to really distinguish anything. Well, he disbanded the crew, he says eventually. Ace liked him, says Luffy. Didn't he? He's not dead, points out his navigator, not yet. She sounds defeated, Straw Hat glances at her and frowns. Cordelia sighs heavily. Captain liked him, yeah, she says. Quieter, we all did. He was, well, echoes Deuce. He wants to laugh but it'd end up a sob, he thinks. Just get to the end, one thing at a time, get. Straw Hat to safety first, worry about Ace later, deal with the whole of grief inside his mind never, maybe. We're here now, someone will get to us in a second, he lets out, and Straw Hat's crewmate sags. Really? She asks. An Ace? Asks Luffy. Deuce inhales, exhales. You can't go after him anymore, he points out. You can barely fight regular Marines. And the Spadil can't get closer than it already is, it's not strong enough. We just have to hope that someone else will get to him. We've done all we could. Deuce starts to say skull, and the hole inside his chest caves in deeper. We could go. And they could. We don't even know how to get to him, he says. And what if we're more of a burden than a help? And what if he's already escaped? The fighting would have stopped, wouldn't it, points out Cordelia. Deuce looks at Whitebeard's and Sengoku's figures, silent. I don't think so, he eventually says. I don't think it stops until one of them has lost. He frowns. Is that Marco? I thought he was organizing the retreat, what's going on? Asks Cordelia, and Deuce with the meager amount of observation he has focuses on the fight so far away. Akainu, he breathes. Akainu stabbed him, and, wait, someone else What? Protests the navigator. But I He ignores her, there's something familiar about the other Haki signature, and he reaches in his memory to get things to make sense. Please, let it not fail him now. It connects, and he swears, can almost feel himself switching mindsets, adrenaline coursing through him. Skull, we have to go. Straw Hats, Cordelia, stay there, escape, but Skull, we have to go, now, Ace is bound to go there now Wait calls Cordelia as Deuce takes off in a dead run, exhaustion melting in the face of the terror he feels flooding in. Deuce, what's going on? He ignores her and runs, not even checking to see if Skull is following. Hopefully their small numbers will hide their approach, hopefully they can be useful, hopefully this can still end well. He knows how tragedy works. He won't let it happen again, not to Ace. Oh. His breath hasn't returned. His flames are extinguished. He thinks if he tried to blink his eyes would fill with tears, he thinks if he tried to exist he'd crumble. He breathes in ashes. Akainu grins, for the moment he's victorious. Fist halfway buried in an emperor's chest, and yet he looks ridiculously small. Pops twists to look at him, and Conquerors washes over the battlefield, so familiar to Marco, so overpowering. Don't think I'll be killed by you, brat, Pops growls, and sends Akainu flying before his triumphant rictus can morph into despair. The ground explodes around his father. Shards of ice sent flying, people screaming and the water rising, and rising, and rising. This is a pirate's vengeance. Whitebeard kneels as Marineford tilts, and starts to drown it and its stupid prideful officers. Whitebeard! Screams Sengoku from where he jumped away when the iceberg he was standing on shattered away, holding 2 unconscious soldiers between his arms. That wasn't the deal. There is no deal to be had with liars, snarls Whitebeard, and Marco lands, finally, next to him. Please, he chokes out. He's always tried to be strong, and always failed. Pops glances at him. Son, he says, rumble of a voice familiar, even worn down to a blood-stained remnant of what it had once been. Please, repeats Marco. It feels like he didn't ever land, the ground under him shakes and tilts and please, 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 please. Selfish boy, scolds Pops. It's not your time to die, here. But Marco hasn't ever existed without him, he doesn't think so what does it matter? But I can't dash, starts to say Marco, and closes his eyes too tightly, feels so young in the face of his father's death. But what else is there, he asks. Edward Newgate frowns at him, fondness on his features. Everything, brat, he laughs. The world that was mine is not half of what the real one is, but the world that was his was Marco's, and that had been all the world he cared to know. Still is. Please, he repeats. Please, please st dash. War kills, says Whitebeard. Families especially. I can't shy away from this. And he can't. Okay, he says, and inhales shards of ice and smoke alike, lets them suffocate him, hook in his lungs and on the inside of his veins, permanent wounds for permanent grief. Then I'm staying. Pops laughs at him, chokes on his own blood, takes one step back and avoids Sengoku's advance. I'm not your captain, not anymore, he just says, and Marco takes that as approval, jumps into the sky, feels vengeful and empty, feels heavy, like something is dragging him down. Still, violence sings in his veins. The world shatters around him. If things must collapse, he'll at least help bring them down. Oh. Akainu goes flying and Ben, for once, doesn't sigh at the dramatics of the emperors. He just zeroes in on Kizaru, next to him. Focuses on the unknown, ignores the boy next to him, the pain in his chest. Shanks was almost as young when Ben met him, just as fatherless as Ace is about to be. This doesn't bring back memories, rather grief, for his captain's once king, now ghost. Pops, mutters Ace, tone horrified. If Ben was brave enough to look at him, maybe he'd see himself in the terror, the guilt, the anger. As it stands, he grits his teeth. Years in the New World, years at the side of an emperor, will make you no stranger to politics, prizes and prices. But paying this one cuts, and cuts deep, when once Shanks had looked at Whitebeard's ship deep in the night, smiled, and said, my captain liked him, like that was a thing Shanks did, talking about Roger. Ben doesn't close his eyes. That would be a weakness Whitebeard would scoff at him for. Who expects a war without casualties? Who expects a miracle not paid for? Pops, screams Ace, lunging forwards, uncaring of the blood running down his temple and getting into his eyes. Around them, the air burns, incandescent, Ace's body lit with raging wildfires, barely contained infernos. In the middle of it all Ben sees is a scared child. Ace! Calls Jinbe, catching him by the wrist, yanking him back. Ace shakes him off as the ground starts to tremble. What dash, mutters Kizaru, and the ground around them splinters and cracks, separates in two, Ace and Jinbe rising as Ben and Kizaru fall. Let me go, he can hear Ace argue, from afar. Let me go, Pops dash. How could you even help? Scolds Jinbe. He's sinking the island for us, and you want to rush into combat and get yourself killed? When he came all this way. He's going to die, says Ace, whispers really. I can't let him dash. Focus on staying alive, interrupts Jinbe. This isn't a fight you can win. Like hell it isn't, let me go. You can barely stand, points out Jinbe. Kizaru laughs, next to Ben, and he refocuses all at once on his immediate vicinity. Well, first mate, I guess the truce didn't last, the Admiral smirks. Ben's hand drifts to his gun. Guess not, he answers evenly. The floor is still shaking, but neither of them pay it any attention. You're not going to let me go after him, are you, sighs Kizaru theatrically. I've made my position clear enough, I think, answers Ben, smirking, and lifts up his gun. Knows without having to turn around that Yasop, from 100 feet away, is doing the same. Kizaru disappears in a flash of light, there's a shout from up ahead, and oh, wrong move, wrong FING move. Ben liked a whole lot of people that just died. Ben likes a whole lot of people that are going to be grieving for an enormous amount of time, and his captain is included in there. Ben has been sitting around waiting for the right time for hours now, and he might be the voice of reason on his crew, he might be the steadiness to his captain's movement, but his hands are no less blood-stained, no less vengeful. Water explodes upwards from Ace and Jinbe's position. Ace surges forward over Ben's head, landing in a crouch, half-stumbling and catching himself last minute. There's another earthquake, and around them ice keeps shattering, keeps sinking, the noise of buildings collapsing on themselves is deafening. Ben looks up to see the walls full of cracks, to see Sengoku dock Whitebeard in the chin, to see the Emperor stumble back and grin with his jaw half dislocated, and slam his staff once more as Phoenix tries his best to claw Sengoku's eyes out. His captain is nowhere to be seen. Fire Fist, growls Kizaru, appearing in front of Ace, nonchalance well and truly gone now, irritation piercing through. Time for death. Ben tries to shoot him in the shoulder, and then in the temple, and then for good measure lunges and kicks his knees in with armament. Kizaru dodges the first bullet, lets the second pass through harmlessly, and collapses when Ben hits him, apparently not expecting him to get closer. Come again, Admiral? Shanks rubbing off him, he never used to taunt people. Kizaru grunts, gets up, and teleports away fast enough for Yasop to not have the time to put twin bullets in his wrists or shoulders, probably. It's frustrating, having to hold back, but they're Shanks' crew, and they can't afford to kill an admiral, not when that would mean the loss of any escape they might be allowed. And it's not like Kizaru can kill anyone from their side, either. The Marines aren't prepared for a war with another emperor. Ben's fight is probably the most intervention they're allowed, and only because it pertains to Ace. Kizaru jumped left of them, his observation Haki tells him. He positions himself so he's in the Marine's path if he wants to get to Ace again. Get out of here, Ben yells at Ace, and the fucker just shakes his head, because of course he does. This is my fight too, he retorts, and Ben wants to shake sense into him but he doesn't have the time. If you die, all of this is pointless, he points out, and Ace's face hardens, probably ready to defend who knows what. Ben doesn't have the time. This stops when you escape, he snarls. This stops when you're gone, because you're what they're here for, and until you get out of here people are going to keep dying. So put your pride aside and go. Ace looks at him with fragile defiance in his eyes. Ben remembers how bright he looked, thanking Shanks for taking care of Luffy, and can't help but compare then to the burnt-out candlelight he gives out now. They all came for you, he says, softer. And Ace blinks at him. Shoulders go down. I'm not supposed to run, he says. I'm supposed to fight. You're not the one doing the protecting, right now, retorts Ben, with urgency in his voice. Ace, he's right, calls Jinbe, surfacing from a bit of water just as Kizaru jumps back in, moving too fast for Ben to get a good look at him. The respite they had earned is all gone, there's no more pauses for jokes and taunting in the dance of Kizaru's attacks, and it's all Ben can do to parry them or redirect them. But dash. Ace, repeats Jinbe, and the boy's silence weighs heavy. Come on, says the former warlord. Ace doesn't even protest. Ben grits his teeth, and hopes that he'll get to punch Kizaru in the face at least once before having to leave. Oh. Ace doesn't run. He's supposed not to run. That's what he's always done, that's what held him back when Grey Termina burned around him, when Teach laughed at him outright and he'd realized he was terribly, tragically outmatched. He doesn't run, it got Sabo killed, after all, didn't it? And even now his mind screams at him to turn around, to dive into fights teeth bared and infernos at the tip of his fingers. But Jinbe's hand on his shoulder would hold him back, probably, and he doesn't feel like much of an inferno right now, nausea and dread fighting in his throat. He isn't supposed to run, he's the one that has to fight, he'll claw his way out of hell if he has to. Jinbe's hold on his shoulder tighten, he's shaking, he realizes distantly, and instinctively he looks for Pops, but can't find him amid the chaos of buildings falling, people crumbling, the world shaking apart. If he ever gets out of here, will the rest of the world be destroyed too? It feels like it. Jinbe drags him away. Ace's fight left him all at once, he forgot to hold on to it, his head swims and his body aches. Die in all of this is pointless, and that's too big of responsibility, isn't it? But Ace promised Luffy to never die. But Luffy came all this way, all of them, and he thinks even if he tried to blink his tears away they'd still cascade down, he'd still choke on this endless realization, that they came, that they came, that they came. He would have been fine dying alone, he had always thought, he'd always braced himself for it deep down, and it still comes as a shock, that someone disagreed. That so many people disagreed. He's not supposed to run, he's supposed to earn his survival, but he lets Jinbe drag him away still. I have to see him again, and Jinbe glances at him, falters, sets his shoulders again. No, he says, and Ace looks at him, loss in his eyes, and feels the waves rising and dragging him down. No, we're escaping, repeats Jinbe, and Ace. Never listen to anyone, ever. He fights back nausea, fights back the dread and the grief and the guilt. Shakes Jinbe's grip off, summons his flames for what feels the 1000th time, rises and rises. Ace, wait dash, calls Jinbe, as Ace watches the battlefield. Shank's crewmate and Kizaru are flashing around, too fast for him to keep up, no rhyme or reason to their movements. In the distance, if he focuses on observation Haki, he can feel Ivankov on the hidden ships Kizaru mentioned, guesses they're out of the fight now. Marco is easy to spot, next to Pops, and next to Pops also is a familiar signature. Ace feels his heart stop, feels his hesitation at getting closer melt away all at once. Get to Luffy, he orders Jinbe, and the fishman frowns at him. I promised your brother I'd get you out of here alive, do you think I'm leaving you? Blackbeard's going after Pops, breathes Ace. And I won't let him kill anyone else in my family. And he surges ahead. Something about family. It dies. Captain, mutters Shachi uneasily. Captain, Marineford sinking. Something about family. Law, we need to get out, calls Beepo. Underwater is their shelter and Law feels cut off from the world. The noise will not reach them here, which must mean they're safe, right? There are fallen fools sinking down to the depths of a dying island, and he thought he knew destruction. Captain, calls Shachi. Law. The water's going to rise eventually. If Whitebeard keeps at it, the ship can't take that. We can barely take the shockwaves as it is. I'll room all of you to safety, he mutters. Stop fretting. Safety's not in range, retorts Beepo. And you can't, not all of us, Law, you know that. I'll do it, he mutters. Beepo looks at him anxiously, he feels more than he sees. The mess of ice that is Marineford's battleground is crowded and loud, but he can't tear his focus away from it for the life of him. Shachi sighs. With the years he's learned to recognize a lost cause, good. I thought you planned on being a warlord, he mutters. Your future employer's kinda getting its butt kicked. Law waves a hand distractedly. Plans can change. He smirks. I've never been a fan of them, either. Khorasan was a Marine, but he never went to them for help. If they'd been trustworthy. Ah, but something about family, it dies. A spark catches his attention at the edge of his vision. Burnt out and drenched in salt water, burning with something you could call desperation, with something you could call hope, with this aching mix of the two. Firefist's coming back to the fight, he announces. What? Exclaims Shachi, and crowds nearer to the glass, like he'll see anything else than endless expanses of water and indistinct silhouettes towards the surface. But that's suicidal. They all fought so hard to get him away from here, what the hell's he thinking? Law frowns. I don't know, he answers. Coming to his captain's rescue? Suggests Beepo. His tone is worried in a way Law is supposed to prevent. The crew's disbanded, points out Law, glancing at him. Beepo shrugs helplessly. They called themselves family, he explains. If there's any reason to jump back into a fight dash. Even one lost in advance, adds Shachi grimly, but nods. Something about family. And after his little brother came for him, even, sighs Shachi. Shame. Law's fingers are white over his sheath, he knows. Kindness was ripped out of his heart so long ago, if it hadn't been he would have done it himself, for how useless it is. I think, he states, banishing things like Lami's voice back to the far end of his mind, that we could get something out of this. Oh, Luffy, whispers Nami. She wants to rest so bad, escape is within reach. But she pushes herself out of her stunned silence, and murmurs, going relatively unheard in the maelstrom of the war, still going and going and going and. Luffy, something's wrong, she drags out of her throat. Luffy glances at her, and the exhaustion is everywhere but in his gaze. He's panting and swaying slightly, bleeding sluggishly, but focuses on her anyway. She swallows and bites back her tears from the hot and cold of her arm. The winds, she explains, holding back from gesturing at the last minute. They're wrong. How do you know? Says the woman, frowning. Nami sighs. I'm the navigator, she says. It's my job. Captain Dash. You're not going anywhere, Ace's crewmate interrupts. Both of you. And her arm hurts. And she's not supposed to have lived this long. And Ace isn't here. The winds are wrong, she repeats. It feels wrong to keep quiet, to lie to Luffy, even only by omission. I don't know, something's about to happen, and I don't know where Ace went. He has people, says Luffy. Ace is strong. Maybe he is. He didn't seem it, chained up, kneeling in front of death, head bowed, eyes closed. He's certainly stronger than her, that she doesn't doubt, but Nami spent so long believing or pretending to believe her own hope, and she feels as though Ace has never let his the shadow needed to be. There's something to be said about sacrifice as giving up, Nami thinks. There's something terrible about watching your parent die in front of you, die because of you. Unending nightmares, and the winds are wrong. I hope you're right, but Dash. Ace is strong, repeats Luffy, serious and confident. Nami never quite managed to figure out how to shoulder his faith, and even directed towards another it weighs like a demand on her. Luffy sets his jaw. He promised me he wouldn't die, he says. Captain's powerful, agrees the woman. She hesitates. He can get reckless, but if Deuce gets to him dash. She sighs. Well, he never quite stopped thinking of us as his responsibilities. Deuce should be able to lure him away from the fights. Her hope looks threadbare, it'd be unfair to poke holes into it, so Nami keeps the whispers of her doubts to herself. They curl around themselves and tangle the thread of her thoughts. If she could bear to collapse she would. Even so, she forces out of her mouth. The winds are wrong, we'll never be able to get out of here with those. We're using, water currents or something? The ships are underwater, and out is going to be too much of a risk dash. Nami opens her mouth, and then closes it. Then, I guess it's fine, she finishes lamely. I just wish I knew what was skiing everything in. And Ace's crewmate goes rigid. It's like a jolt to her system. Nami whirls around, expecting an admiral or a warlord or the rest of the Fing4 emperors, who even knows, but there's no one behind her, in this outreach next to the water. In the background there is still the clatter of swords and yells and agony, past the line they ran through, and as much as she narrows her eyes she can't see it moving forward or back dramatically. It should calm her down and it does all. What dash, she asks, but Luffy frowns at the water and says, there's someone coming from underwater. That should be the transport ship, says the woman, not bothering to look. Nami really should get her name at some point. But stop, did you say dash? Luffy grabs Nami's shoulder and pulls her away. She bites back a scream at the jolt of her arm as he launches the both of them into the air, and then looks down and bites back a whimper. The ice under them is cut up in 1,000 pieces. Straw Hat, hello, greets a man in a flurry of feathers. She recognizes as warlord, recognizes him as dangerous, and they're supposed to be out, they're supposed to be done. When will this be done? A little boring to let you run, don't you think? They start falling. Nami shrieks and grabs onto her captain, casts her eyes up and everywhere for a solution. Luffy lets out a breath that sounds painful. She tries to get her arm to move but can't, tries to spin her climb attack but can't, hands locked in the position it was in when she fell in. They fall. They fall, and the man jumps, and this was all useless. Then the air around them pops, and Nami finds herself opening her eyes to a window under the ocean. Oh. Kobe opens his eyes to pandemonium. Well, no. He opens his eyes to Helmeppo's shaking hand on his shoulder, and Red Hair Shanks, kneeled in front of him. Oh no, he squeaks before he can stop himself. Please don't kill us. Helmeppo lets out a long, hysterical laugh. Kobe, I hate you, his partner declares, high-pitched and unsteady. I hate you so much, why are you so stupidly noble dash? If I had wanted to kill you, you'd already be dead, points out Shanks. I've also just saved your lives, so it would be counterproductive. Helmeppo whimpers. Kobe feels very, very strong sympathy for him, and also like he's 2 seconds away from fainting again. What happened, he says, trying to get up from his sprawled position on the ice, knocking into Helmeppo as he crawls on all fours and then pulls himself back into an upright position again. The taste of blood in his mouth is unpleasant but inevitable. He sends a look to Helmeppo that's half gratitude, half complete and utter mindless fear. Helmeppo sends him a look back he can't decipher. The sunglasses never help. I saved you, answers Red Hair, mercilessly not letting him pretend he isn't here. Your superior did it the first time and then promptly forgot about you. He did? Asks Kobe, at the same time as Helmeppo points out, hysterically, our superior is dead. Red Hair shrugs. It's a war, he answers. Most of them probably are. Kobe breathes through the horror of it. Helmeppo swallows audibly. Kobe leans a bit more heavily against him and Helmeppo straightens once more, moves forward in front of the younger a smidge. Red Hair watches. Kobe glances around helplessly. They're on a secluded corner of the battlefield, though where he couldn't tell. Why did you save us? He asks. Helmeppo goes to elbow him, visibly remembers they're both extremely injured, and settles on sending looks to Kobe that probably spell out how stupid he thinks his partner is being right now. Joke's on him. The sunglasses block it all. Kobe's immune to his disapproval, at least until Helmeppo can yell at him again. If they make it out alive. I had to talk to an old friend, explains Red Hair. And you, well, it would have been a shame to let you two die. You're interesting. Kobe swallows. Helmeppo looks like he'd rather never hear another nice thing about himself in his life than have one of the 4 emperors compliment him. Manages to say Kobe, heroically. Red Hair smirks. You made enemies there, he comments. Is that a threat? It sounds like a threat. Follows suit Helmeppo. That was Kobe's plan. Red Hair's gaze sharpens as it focuses on Helmeppo. Kobe shrinks back. Helmeppo visibly flinches. They have perhaps never been more in sync. You still followed him, says Red Hair. It sounds like accusation and mockery and approval at the same time. Kobe may have a concussion. Says Helmeppo, high-pitched again. Red Hair watches him for a second before standing up. Marines don't like disobedience, I don't think, he comments. The nail that sticks out, well, you know. It sounds like a threat. No, they're dash, starts to say Kobe, and finds himself out of arguments, devoid of protests. Falls silent, defeated. The nail that sticks out, and they did. But, we were right, he settles on, pleading. Helmeppo sighs. We're going to get killed, he despairs. He's always been the grounded side of their duo, the realistic one, and today Kobe is out of ideals to offer. Well, maybe, agrees Red Hair, ambivalent. Or you may have gained someone's respect. Ha, laughs Helmeppo once, short and doubtful. Kobe leans on him harder. We were right, he repeats. Kobe, says Helmeppo, sharp, and interrupts himself before saying whatever he was about to say once glancing at him. Kobe, he repeats, softer. His head hurts. His mouth tastes like blood. He's dead tired. The world is swaying. Helmeppo's hand lands like a manacle on his wrist, pulls him upright. Snap out of it, he hisses under his breath. Kobe breathes through it, through the red-hot points of pain and sorrow. You don't get to quit now, scolds Helmeppo. Kobe inhales. They're dying, he whimpers. Helmeppo's face falls and sets back as fast as it fell. Yes, he answers, curt and urgent. We're really trying not to, so dash. We have to make it stop. We tried, answers Helmeppo. We tried and we failed, Kobe, so cut your losses. Red Hair approaches and clears his throat. Helmeppo jrks away from Kobe to turn to him. I wouldn't say you failed. You got in here long enough for me to make a deal. Kobe notices, out of the corner of his eye, Helmeppo looking incensed. He bites back tears. None of them answer. Red Hair shakes his head. Don't beat yourself up, he laughs, disrespectful in his levity. Red-hot pain and screams and a headache and exhaustion, don't beat yourself up. Too little, too late. None of them answer. Helmeppo's shaking. Well, this won't be the only war you fight that's wrong, shrugs Red Hair. Better get used to it. And he walks away, and leaves them there, two FING idiots in the middle of the graveyard. Oh. He's supposed to be dead, he's supposed to be dead, he's supposed to be dead. How is he still around? It doesn't make sense. Whitebeard's an old man, a sick one at that. The war has been going forever, and he's been fighting for most of it. This is not how violence works. Teach laughs at it and he reaches for it and it has never left him unmarred, so why is Whitebeard still standing? Why is the FING old man still standing? Marco dives down. Teach has never fought him, he realizes distantly. Did you forget why you ran, coward? Hisses the Phoenix, and last minute turns to throw himself at Sengoku's fist, armament darkening his always blue always scalding flames. You brat, grunts Sengoku, and sends Marco flying out. Midway through the air the former first mate spreads his wings wide, flares the flames at his pseudo-arms in doing so, and slows himself down gracefully, before launching right back into it. Whitebeard coughs up blood and swings his staff in the same movement. Teach bites clean through his tongue while the tremors shake through him, tastes blood, coughs it up, crimson saliva dripping down the sides of his mouth. He could end this. He could end this, a pull and a theft and some deaths, and he would win, it's time for him to start winning. But here, standing at ground zero. Move, some part of his brain screams at him, and he throws up his arms, hockey-covered last minute, and blocks his old captain's naginata, skidding back and almost falling in frigid waters. Brat, rumbles Whitebeard, and gives a shove, almost negligently. Here, Whitebeard seems as formidable as he did in the past, when Teach used to watch him control tsunamis and wield death like an old friend. Here, some resentful part of Teach slows down in what he's loath to call respect. Here, Teach feels his eyes widen as he loses his balance, ducks under, sidesteps his watery grave. Pay attention to me, he snarls. Unless you want to die, old man. He shouldn't feel small, and the fact that he is makes fury sing in his veins. Dangerous men are not to be angered, and it's time FING remnants learned the lesson. Sengoku smashes a fist against his face and his vision goes stark white for a moment, just as he pulls at the man's fruit to avoid being obliterated by Buddha's strength. Dash, mumbles Sengoku, righteous anger useless as always, and stumbles back just as Whitebeard buries the blade of his naginata in his newly vulnerable arm, rips it out with a bloodthirsty grin. The powers would work well together, but Whitebeard's not even using his. What a waste, what a FING idiot. Teach slips out of the fight of giants, towards Whitebeard's back. Darkness will hide him and soon nothing will be able to anymore. Soon. Soon. He has debts that are owed and fear that he's cultivated, and it's just an old man. Sons must always die. Oh. He would have been a doctor, once. He didn't want to. He didn't want to and he fled, but he would have been a civilian, once. He would have been forgotten, once. He would have been safe, once. That. Ace isn't difficult to feel for, even in the chaos of the battlefield. Bright, burning star, even if he feels burnt out, vacillating in a way that is so unlike his steady captain. He's there, and that's all Deuce needs, all that he's pleading for. He's there, and free. Once Deuce would have been a doctor, and who cares? He ran. Who cares? He got shipwrecked. Once Deuce would have been a corpse, and Ace shared a fruit. First mate of a disbanded crew. Once he would have been smart enough to follow Ace to Bonero, once. Who cares? Nobody has the energy for wishes, nobody cares for those, his captain in sight and Blackbeard like a nauseating, terrifying omen. Be safe, he'd asked a lifetime ago, Thatch's corpse barely cold, Ace weighted down in a way that should not have been familiar. Captain, please be safe. It's dangerous for you out there. No, don't go, because who could have ever stopped Ace? No requests to take them with him, to trust them. Sometimes Deuce wonders, if he had asked, if Ace would have caved. They hadn't talked as much, in Whitebeard's crew. Same division, of course, the spades all scattered in the second, Ace bounding up to them like they'd still been on the spadil. But Ace was a commander, now, and them simple crewmates. They'd talked, they'd been together, but a little more distant. Done little less confiding, not that Ace had ever been open about anything. Sometimes Deuce wonders, if he had asked, if they had asked, would Ace have caved? They'd always been his responsibility, the same way he had considered Teach's betrayal to be. But he'd had to trust them, crossing the Grand Line, even Ace couldn't face storms alone. If they'd leaned on it, on the past, would Ace have let them come? Would it have changed anything? Against a warlord and he'd sent them away, against an emperor and there was agonizing guilt in his gaze, but they'd stayed. Of course they'd stayed. I have to go, had said Ace, the spades in front of him like a farewell. Stay for the funeral, had been all that Deuce had dared ask. If he had done more, if he had spoken up. Ace had given him a name and a purpose and a voice and he'd never quite managed to use it when it mattered. And here, his name does not matter and his voice would be drowned, cowardly first mate of a disbanded crew. All that he has left is the first solution, run and run and run, towards and towards and towards. If he had asked, would Ace have stalled? If he asks, will he run? If Deuce runs, will he die? Who cares? Ace is the sun and Deuce has always just been caught in his orbit. It's not hard to run towards him. It's what he's done since the beginning, and it was selfish of him to leave Skull, to leave Cordelia, they should have gone together. But Ace never told them. But Deuce is so selfish. And if it will save him, maybe he'll learn to breathe again. Luffy blinks. He has to grit his teeth to stay upright, vaguely registering Nami's weight on him. The floor shifts weirdly under his feet, the colors mixing with one another, like how it was fighting the scary guy from the prison. He remembers Iva's warnings and clenches his fist against his chest in an effort to hold in the pain. Luffy! Shrieks Nami, from a distance, and then, what are you doing here? She sounds afraid, and she's sounded afraid since they've reunited, but her tone feels wronger. I'm a doctor, says someone drilly. He needs a doctor. Luffy scowls. I don't, he protests. Also, you're not even my doctor. Luffy says Nami, then cuts herself off. Luffy's vision darkens and he shakes his head frustratingly, trying to get rid of the weird shadows stuck to the corner of his eyes. The landscape shifted, he knows that much. He can't hear water or cries in the distance, and the floor under his feet is cold but not cold like ice. He lost his flip-flops when he jumped up, or they might have burned hours earlier, and he didn't notice. Instinctively he touches his head, to make sure his hat is still secure. The well-worn straw feels the same it's always been under his hands. He lowers his hand carefully. The girl, from Ace's crew, he demands. Did you leave her there? There's a silence. Straw Hat, says the one he doesn't know. I saved you, you know. Did you leave her there? Repeats Luffy. Send me back. She helped us. Luffy says Nami, sounding on the verge of tears, but he ignores her, no matter how sad she's going to be at him. That guy was dangerous, he explains. And she didn't have her crew. Ace was far away. Nothing happens. Send me back. She helped us. The stranger scoffs, and Luffy frowns at him. And what, how could you help her? You're barely standing. Luffy blinks to get rid of the shadows in his eyes. They go away a bit, enough that he can distinguish weird gray, and Nami's hair. I can help her, he says, because he can. She's alone. Send me back, or I'll go myself. The annoying weird guy lets out an irritated sound. Then there's a weird pop, one that sounds almost like Sabaety's bubbles did when they exploded, and Ace's crewmates collapses onto the floor, wheezing painfully. Nami reaches out towards her, but the stranger sighs and does something weird, and then Nami and Ace's friend are both gone. "So now that you owe me even more, will you listen to me?" snaps the weird man. Oh. The noise Teach makes when Ace decks him in the face is the only good thing that's come out of this war. His wrist gives a worrying crack when Ace pulls it back. He's always been liable to setting it too straight, to never bending it quite enough. A fault, he supposes, due to Garp's training, who didn't punch his opponents as much as he barreled through their bones. The satisfying snap of Teach's nose, of course, more than makes up for the sharp pain. The traitor recovers his balance easily enough, annoyingly, picking himself up in one smooth stride as he dodges the accompanying boot Ace had the firm intention to smash in his throat. Teach laughs. "Are you stupid?" He spits out at the same time as some red saliva. "It seems someone's already gotten to his teeth," Ace notes, with the single-minded fury-mixed focus that comes with a fight. The smoke is acrid when he breathes it in, and he figures this is the best and worst time to suffocate. A line of flame aimed at Teach's eyes regrettably misses him when the air shakes. From Pop's fruit. Ace inhales and exhales too fast, like his lungs aren't quite working. The exhaustion pulls at each of his muscles with unforgiving regularity, dull pain added to sharp one. Teach pulls his hand back, in a gesture reminiscent of one he'd used on Bonero. Ace lunges to knee him in the stomach when the gesture fails to make his blood freeze in his veins. "ACE," roars Marco as he intervenes between the two of them just in time, dropping 3 meters as he lands and extinguishes his flames in the same breath. He slams into Ace's side, knocking them both onto the unsteady ground in an ungrateful heap. Marco covers his body in armament haki just in time for Teach's attack to hit his back. The second the man's arm stops glowing black, Marco's flames are back, and Teach shrieks as his arm gets burned to whatever degree the phoenix gets to when he's mortally said. The growing black hole on the BSDRD's other hand fizzles out of existence. "What the hell are you doing here?" hisses Marco, as he takes flight again, his talons aiming for Teach's eyes. Ace scrambles upright, slipping on the ice, and recovers his balance enough that he manages to leap out of the range of Sengoku's palm, slamming down where he used to be. "Son," rumbles Whitebeard, sounding out of breath. Ace dash. He gets interrupted by Akainu's figure, sending a column of magma their way, apparently uncaring of friendly fire if the way he doesn't make any effort to avoid Sengoku is any indication. They all jump away as the ice melts further. Ace barely has time to realize that he won't make his landing when Marco snatches him up, grabbing him by his arms. The talons dig so deep they leave red marks. "Let me go," hisses Ace when he realizes Marco is flying higher and higher still. "Let me go, it's Teach." "You're going to die," yells back Marco. "You're not strong enough to be here, Sengoku's after you, everyone's after you, and you're going to die." It's been said. It's been said, but I'm not letting him win, says Ace defiantly. Sets his jaw tighter. Doesn't think, running got Sabo killed. Doesn't think, I don't know where Luffy is. Doesn't think. Teach is here and he killed Thatch. Teach is here and he wants to kill Pops. Even burned out there's no chance Ace is letting that go. The war ends dash. With me, interrupts Ace, and it burns through him the same, the weight and the guilt and the thankfulness. But it doesn't, right? It ends when Pops dies. Marco flinches. They're still in the air, and from there the battlefield looks endless and overwhelming in a way it does not, up close. Ace wonders if that's always Marco's view, during the fight, all the people that he can't save and all the corpses he'll bury. He wants to cry. He's cried. There will be time for grieving, later. There will be time for regrets, later, because Ace's never FING managed to keep his promises. Pops wants to bury Marineford, says Ace, and almost stops for how still Marco goes. Still, continues, it's what he always said he'd do, isn't it? For one of us. Marco stays silent. His wings are the only thing moving. Marco, he's not well enough to do that without Dash. I know. The former first mate's voice is rough when he answers. He can't make sure no one comes after us, points out Ace, and he's talking about his father dying, but running away got Sabo killed, if Teach stops him from using his fruit. None of you know how he fights with his fruit, but I do. Under them, Pops is locked in a clash with Akainu, while Teach tries to flee from Sengoku's wrath. Go with Jinbe, says Marco after a moment of silence. Pops is alone right now. You fought him once. He beat you. I'm not leaving, says Ace. I'm not leaving, and Jinbe can't come closer, because of Fishman Island. The Marines will retaliate. Marco snarls. I'll protect Fishman Island, he says, but he sounds desperate, so Ace doesn't need to say you're not Whitebeard out loud. The silence hangs. Go, pleads Marco. But Ace grits his teeth. Says, he went to save me. I can do the same. Stop playing martyr and just dash. I'm not, he replies. Teach won't ever win against Pops. He's not good enough. But Whitebeard shouldn't even have to fight him. Leave it to me then. Ace shakes his head. This is my fight. It started all of this, let me end it. Don't FING play the hero dash. I'm not, swears Ace, because if he had then maybe Gramps would be alive. But I don't run from my fights, because Gramps wasn't a fight, right up until it was one he was going to lose Luffy to. I don't run. You can't make me. This is the only thing he knows how to hold on to, through pain and gritted teeth and hopelessness. Through anger and hate and fear. If he lets go of it now, the ground shaking under him, what will be left? Marco sighs. He handles defeat more gracefully than Ace ever will, but it mars his skin with worry lines nonetheless, unnoticed tragedies covered by blood and scars on others, glaringly obvious on him. Don't die, he orders. Blue flames gentle against Ace's skin, barely warm. This is a kindness he doesn't know how to repay. They land. Oh. Shanks walks and they let him pass. It isn't so unexpected anymore. Oh, it used to be. He never quite got when he went from no-name pirates to one of the emperors. When Rayleigh had found out about this particular epithet he'd made the trip especially, and Shanks had said, see, Rayleigh, I haven't drowned yet, to hide how much he missed his first crew, the way he'd been able to hide behind them. Rayleigh had said, insufferable like Roger, he'd be so proud, and Shanks had felt, so keenly, clawing at his heart fresh as the first day, the absence of Captain Roger. All of his cheer had vanished from under him. And Ben, by his side, had scoffed, tugged at a stray strand of Shanks' hair, ignoring the pained ow, and retorted, what's there to brag about the Marine complimenting you, Rayleigh, hi. He'd remembered how to breathe through it again. Rayleigh had congratulated him and left to talk with Ben, whom he'd always liked better, and Shanks had gone on to whine to Mihawk about favoritism and being ignored, while he ignored him. And he'd felt old, and nostalgic, and, guiltily, maybe a bit happy, too. In the middle of all this blood, it's hard to hold on to the child he used to be. He doesn't think he'd want to, either. Grew into himself comfortably, all things considered. It's just that some part of him is screaming for Whitebeard not to die. It's the same part that snuck to Roger's execution, and watched, morbidly, as his captain died. He'd held Buggy's hand too tightly and closed his eyes at the last moment in some cowardness he's never really regretted. He never asked Buggy if he'd seen and Buggy never said. It wouldn't have changed a thing, when he opened his eyes Roger was still dead. No miracle had come to save him. It'll be the same for Whitebeard, no matter how impossible it seems. So Shanks walks, and the fighting stops around him. Marines wide-eyed, pirates retreating. Until he finally reaches one that doesn't. Buggy, he says, amenable in that way his old friend hates. Congrats on escaping impel down. You absolute BSTRD, spits Buggy. You thrice-med miserable excuse of a person, stop talking to me before they up my bounty. He's dust blood sweat covered and panting. His prison uniform is in tatters. There's what looks like poison eating away at the skin on his shoulder. He's never happy to see Shanks and Shanks always finds it fun. Nice to see you too. Did ya meet Luffy? Did you not hear a single word I just said, hisses Buggy. So you did, continues Shanks. You like him? You have the same taste in successors as you have in FING clothes, that is to say none in your crew should throw you overboard already for all the trouble you cause them. Rich coming from the man with clown makeup, comments Shanks idly. I'm going to FING throttle you to death. It's funny, really, how Buggy pretends that all he wants is a calm life and some riches, and then he goes and threatens one of the 4 emperors. They grew up together, and Shanks wouldn't ever attack him. Still. You've tried, shrugs Shanks. Wanna do me a favor? Buggy looks visibly apoplectic. I'll take that as a yes, since you owe me, continues Shanks, and raises his hands up. Obligingly, Yasopp shoots the Marine officer that meant to slit Shanks' throat dead. The corpse collapses in between them. Buggy scoffs. Lazy BSTRD, he says, as if when they were kids he didn't make Shanks do his part of the chores. Always, smiles Shanks. Go and get Mihawk, will you? I need him for a thing. They must have been two to close their eyes, because Buggy's always taken the chance to run away, anyway. Oh. Now what the hell do you think you're doing, says Ivankov, physically yanking the person about to run into ground zero back by the collar. You're one of them, right? Pirates? Did you just somehow miss your retreating? Marcos put them on babysitting duty, which was already not fun when Sabo was 13, and is somehow worse when they're babysitting grown adults that can't figure out when to end a fight or which way FING West is supposed to be after years of life on the sea. But Inazuma's alive. Let me pass, says the guy, struggling in Ivankov's grip. Let me go, I need to get their dash. He's not your captain anymore, says Ivankov bluntly. Whitebeard's children's loyalty is impressive but infuriating when Ivankov can see the wounded they could be helping get away instead of beating sense into their heads. Tack they left behind and impel down anyway, Dragon'll have a laugh over that. Also, you'd get killed over there in an instant. Not for him, says the man impatiently. Ace is there. Captain's what? Asks a man wearing a skull mask. Fashion hasn't evolved in the right direction while Ivankov was in impel down. He went to fight Blackbeard, continues blue-haired pirate. He went to the skull, you know how he is dash. Captain's an idiot, deuce, I know, protest skull, apparently, but he wouldn't dash. That is port gas deet ace that the Phoenix is lifting out of Blackbeard's range, observes Ivankov blankly. For FS sake, man, says Skull. See? Says the other unnamed man plaintively. We have to go, let us pass dash. You're going to die, says Ivankov incredulously. Then, what is he doing there? Then, you FING pirates have no survival instinct. Blue-haired man slips out of Ivankov's grip and launches himself towards, as stated before, the most dangerous part of Marineford. Oh no you don't, says Ivankov, and stabs him in the wrist enough to make him slow down, albeit without injecting anything. I am on dash. The man turns to face them. Pleasant surprise. They usually don't listen to Rees. The man decks them in the nose. Inazuma better appreciate Ivankov's sacrifice and be FING alive. I'm going, the FING idiot growls. Ivankov's been punched in the nose so many times. It basically has no effect on them. They grab the annoying one by the shoulder, dig their nails in through the fabric of his coat, and does not deck him in the face back. Skull yells, deuce. I am, says Ivankov, very calmly, on babysitting duty. Which means, I am not letting Whitebeards die. We came here to save Ace, says Deuce the idiot. I'm not going back without him. You do not have a choice, there is no reason for me to let you go there or accompany you to make sure you don't die dash. And then Straw Hat appears at ground zero. The problem, if Helmeppo is being generous and saying that there is only one problem and not an absolute shittin' of them, is that this war won't FING end. The other problem, because there actually is a shittin' of them, is that Kobe's an honorable idiot and at this point Helmeppo's invested too much time and energy into being his partner to let him die. The last major problem is that they have no medical training at all, and so none of them should be qualified to do triage, which is nevertheless what they're doing, because of FING course it is. Red Hair deposited them far enough away from the front line that the only thing around them are corpses and wounded. The medical division started advancing after the Emperor headed over to the other side of the front line, where the pirates are likewise trying to gather their wounded and leaving their dead behind. None of this is good enough. None of this is FING good enough, but he and Kobe can fight, barely, and that means Kobe volunteered them to get people back, secure the space around the medics, whatever. Anything that needs to get done they can do, yes sir, no matter that Helmeppos had to wrench Kobe away from panicking himself into unconsciousness like 5 times now. And people are dying and Helmeppos tired and none of this FING matters. The war won't end and the pathetic amount of field medics the Marine keeps is nothing compared to the amount of cannon fodder it makes sure to have on hand. 3, 2, 1, mouths Kobe, and at one he pulls an unconscious body out from under a FING slab of stone that has nothing to do in the middle of a battleground of ice. Helmeppo grits his teeth and doesn't scream at the weight of the massive rock pressing onto the wounds of his hands. Kobe takes one look at the man's body and his face crumbles. Helmeppo yells, Kobe, not now, and mercifully his partner drags himself back out of it in time to help balance the rock against the crumbled ice again. And then Kobe turns around and says, frostbite, crushed arms, crushed knees, and he doesn't dry heave again, which is at least a mercy. His voice is so small when he says, shouldn't move him. Helmeppo doesn't look because he's a coward. He raises a hand towards one of the medics. We did what we could, he says, and doesn't tremble, doesn't shake, doesn't cry. Kobe's younger than him and he looks so breakable, and Helmeppo sort of wants to beg someone to wake him up from this nightmare. The medic rushes past them, pointing them in the vague direction of where they're needed. Helmeppo makes it only a few steps before his knees crumble under him. Kobe makes a choked-off sound. Helmeppo thinks, F-. He presses his trembling palms against the ground to steady himself, even though he's already collapsed and it's not like he can fall further. The biting cold of the ice on the blistering burns and cuts on his palms is a relief. Helmeppo, says Kobe, voice trembling. If the both of them collapse they'll be excused, but if he does and Kobe doesn't Kobe will be alone. If he starts crying it'll never stop. If he didn't cry, red hair hovering over Kobe's unconscious body, unsure if his partner would ever wake up, there is no reason to cry, now, as safe as he can be, not even that injured. If he starts crying he'll never stop, so he doesn't dig his palms into his eyes because that would smear blood over them, doesn't tighten them into fists because that would be much too painful, doesn't close his eyes because that would be much too terrifying. Instead he says, I'm okay. It's hoarse and desperate, and it doesn't sound very true. But that's the best he has, and that's the best Kobe's going to get. Yeah, says Kobe. His voice wavers through the single syllable somehow, and Helmeppo wants to cry. Instead he drags his knees under him and gets up, blinks the black spots and the knots in his throat away again. Again and again and again. It's going to end. It's going to end, it has to. If it doesn't, there's no point to living anymore. Oh. Captain Smart, says the nameless crew member Nami's been left with, her captain gone again in a pop so terrifyingly reminiscent of Saboti's. They'll be alright. It would be unwise to punch nameless crew member in the face. He's probably just trying to help. It's not his fault everything's fed. Anyway, she can't move her arm, so she couldn't actually punch him. Sure, she answers instead, and continues pacing anyway. The room she's in is a sterile gray one, no windows anywhere to be seen. She'd appeared in it, Luffy gone from her side, and only barely refrained from cursing up a storm and electrocuting the whole ship. Not that she could've. She can't move her arm, after all, and that includes the climatac she's holding in her hand. But the want had been there. Would she have died? Probably, yes. Would she at least have done something? Also yes. Her hand hurts. She hasn't cried without her crew by her side since they became her crew, and she's not about to start now. She's not about to start now. Where are we, even? She spits out, and the nameless crew member winces at the harshness of her tone. He takes a step back. His hand was towards Nami, like he meant to reach out to her. Nami bares her teeth at him and is perfectly aware she looks unhinged. He takes another step back. He has no FING spine. He has a uniform. What kind of stupid FING pirates have uniforms? Under Marineford, he answers, audibly regretting his being in the same room as her. Captain'll come get us. Oh, will he, she mutters, vicious. Wimpy, useless nameless crew member grimaces more obviously, like even him can understand how monumental a bad idea it is to be anywhere near Marineford right now. Captain has a plan, he insists. He'll get us out of here. She doesn't scoff, because she's vulnerable and alone and quite possibly leverage. But honestly, what kind of FING idiot has so much faith in someone? Well, never mind that. She wants to punch someone. She can maybe see her bone through her burns. Nojiko's bracelet is gone. She wants to scream. Worries gnawing at her. She knows it's acidic, from experience, knows she won't survive it, unless she manages to outrun it. But her arm burns and her legs ache, and she's alone. And Luffy's gone, and Luffy needs a doctor, and Luffy's gonna. She wants to scream. She scowls at nameless crew member instead. He looks halfway panicked, halfway concerned. Your friend will be alright too, he offers. She wasn't in such bad shape and we're pretty good at first aid. And Captain's good. His captain is called the Surgeon of Death, not the Surgeon of 100% recovery rate. Nami doesn't point that out. Nami thinks she's about to go insane, which would be fine, if there wasn't anyone to witness it. How are we getting out of here after your captain does come by? She asks, resuming her aggressive pacing. There's no way they don't have some underwater failsafe. There's no way. The Whitebeard barreled through them, says the guy. So there were some, but there's not anymore. We saw them on our way in. Listen, do you want to go to the monitoring room? I was supposed to treat your arm, but dash. Yes, says Nami. Then, out of respect for Chopper's voice screaming in her head, can you treat me there? Can someone else treat me there? How severe a drawback will I suffer if I don't let anyone treat me? Do you have a navigator? How the F do you navigate underwater? Your arm looks bad, says the crewmate. I don't know a single thing about how the ship works. You should really let us treat your arm. Do you want painkillers? You look like you should want painkillers. Actually, Nami wants to get out of here. She wants to scream. She wants the Marines obliterated. She wants her captain back. She wants Ace Safe-ish, she wants her crew back, she wants her arm not to hurt, and she wants this to not have happened, and she wants Luffy there so she can cry and he can say bullshit things like, it's all okay now Nami, we should go find the others. And then Nami will yell at him and he'll hug her nonetheless, and maybe then she'll stop being so deathly scared. She says, I'll take the painkillers. Oh, my hawk has a headache. It is not a headache gained from, say, getting into a pleasant fight, or drinking too much wine. Those are acceptable. They're not pleasant, but they're all too known side effects of trying to amuse himself. They are accepted. They are taken into account before he makes a decision. This decision he didn't have any input in, and he has a headache. My whack would really like to kill someone. It doesn't even need to be someone important, anyone would do it, as long as they actually prove to be a challenge. This is the equivalent of fighting toddlers. This is the equivalent of fighting toddlers, if toddlers had no idea what proper swordsmanship was. So actually it's worse than fighting toddlers. Presumably. Mihawk doesn't interact with a whole lot of toddlers. Except for the people in front of him, that don't know how to recognize a losing battle. At least when Shanks tried to shank him in the back, long ago when they first met, he'd understood that he'd been outmatched pretty quickly. He hadn't embarrassed himself trying to prolong a battle that was already dead. He'd let his crew's swordsman interfere, and when Mihawk had been about to kill that one, too, he'd let out a wave of Conqueror's Haki so powerful Mihawk's blade had ripped. And then Mihawk had been too mortified to finish the job of killing his opponent dead, because he'd been young and a fool. So now he and Shanks are friends, of a sort. Which is a bad thing for many reasons, all of which Mihawk feels inclined to explore right now, because he is bored out of his FING mind fighting toddlers and has nothing better to do. He could have bowed out of this war. If Shanks hadn't said, well, I need more info, and also it could be fun, wouldn't it, Mihawk would have gotten on his boat and drifted and killed any news coup that could have been wanting to make its way to him with a marine letter. And he wouldn't be here, bored out of his FING mind fighting toddlers. He would be bored out of his mind, at home, with wine, where he's meant to be. No matter how interesting the family drama and Shanks' little ward is, he is not worth this insult to swordsmanship. Especially given the fact that Shanks is here, which means the next time he and Mihawk meet up he is going to recount everything that Mihawk has seen happen with his own two eyes, no doubt with great and unnecessary details. Conveniently forgetting that Mihawk has, in fact, seen it happen with his own two eyes, because he was there, because Shanks told him to go there, because it could be fun. Shanks. Red Hair wants to talk to you, shrills someone next to his ears. And you should know that I'm not his messenger, so tell him that fucker, because he doesn't listen to me because he's the same brat he's always been. Mihawk has a headache. Oh. His plan doesn't survive meeting the enemy. Maybe it would have, if it had actually been a thought-out, viable plan. As it is, he and Straw Hat drop in the middle of the most dangerous fight of the decade, probably, and Law narrowly avoids losing a rather important part of his body, i.e., his head. It's unpleasant to room so soon after already doing one through the water, but less than losing his head to Whitebeard's Naginata. He reappears just as Straw Hat yells, AACE. His ally had landed by Whitebeard, who'd apparently not tried to take his head off. Fire first startles, Luffy, seriously? The Phoenix swears, Ace, your FING family. Straw Hat, rumbles Whitebeard, disapproval dripping from his voice. All of you children don't know how to stay out of fights. Shut up, old man. Yells Straw Hat, jumping to avoid the Fleet Admiral massive fist, and only getting out of range because Whitebeard intervenes. I'm here to get Ace, I told you. He's not here to get Fire Fist. Law is here to get Fire Fist, and Straw Hat is here to convince Whitebeard and Fire Fist and the Phoenix and every single other pirate on this battlefield to not shoot Law dead for winning them this war. The Whitebeard crew, and assorted, is made up of the most idiotically honorable, powerful pirates. If Law has them in their debt, that's a lot of favors to collect. If he survives. If Straw Hat remembers the plan. Luffy, yells Fire Fist, and he looks panicked. Get out of here. Not without you. Argues back Straw Hat, jumping to him. You were supposed to stay with Jinbei and escape. And then the Fleet Admiral grabs Straw Hat out of the air, because he's dragging the revolutionary's son that's just sitting here, barely dodging, like this is FING afternoon tea. Hey! Protests Straw Hat. Let go of Dash. You are, grits out the Fleet Admiral, not leaving here alive. Neither of you. Straw Hat chokes. He wiggles in the Admiral's gigantic fist, going red from anger or lack of air, until the Phoenix goes down to try and scratch the Fleet Admiral's eyes out. The grip on Straw Hat loosens. He SCKS in a breath, and Fire Fist screams, Luffy, and Law switches him out with a block of ice. Which is when Fire Fist gets knocked down, because he's not looking at his own fight, because he's an idiot. None of those people can think, and Law would have been better off allying with Blackbeard or the FING Marines like he originally planned. Fire Fist gets back up. A literal explosion of fire rises with him, and Blackbeard screams, Get out of my way. Surgeon of Death, snarls the Fleet Admiral, paying no attention to the inferno to the side. Is that a fight you want to get involved in? What a stupid FING question. Does Law look like he got here by mistake? Would you hurry it up? He hisses to Straw Hat, as his ally pants on the ground. Ignoring the Fleet Admiral may not be his best move, but can it get worse than freeing the man's most prized prisoner and making fools out of the Marines? Likely not. I'll get it, Straw Hat promises, hand digging into the ice under him to steady himself as he gets up. I just need to get to Ace. It's inane to believe a man that's bleeding that much when he claims to be on the verge of winning, but Law probably lost any and all common sense hours ago. I can room you over there again, but that fight dash. The fleet admiral chooses that moment to remind everyone that they are, in fact, in the middle of the biggest war of the decade, and makes another grab towards Straw Hat, impossibly fast for a man his size. Law registers the haki on his hand, does the math, and comes up with a very low chance of survival should that hand come into contact with his skull. He rooms away, far enough that the fleet admiral will have to disengage from Whitebeard to get to him. Unfortunately, that means that he's still suspended in midair when Whitebeard slams his naginata in the fleet admiral's chest to block the blow Law just dodged. Whitebeard amplifies the resulting shockwave to make the fleet admiral barely stumble, and thoroughly send anyone else flying. Law finds himself projected through the battlefield, wind whipping his face, and has a single "oh shit I'm going to drown" moment before a hand grabs onto his shoulder and yanks. His flight trajectory radically changes. He crashes face first into a stray iceberg. Straw Hat laughs. Law's going to kill someone. When he's not in immediate danger of dying before avenging Khorasan, that is. His muscles scream at him unpleasantly. "Get out of here!" screams the Phoenix from up above, probably to them because no one else would be insane enough to approach this part of the battlefield. The urge to follow his advice and get back to his ship is high, but Law figures that his parents did use to say that his curiosity would get him killed. He raises his head to take stock of the situation instead. The hand that grabbed him was, predictably enough, Straw Hat's. He stands panting over Law's still collapsed form, eyes darting from one direction to another, presumably in an effort to be able to get the hell out of Dodge if they're about to die again. To their right, Fire Fist and Blackbeard are still locked in a deathly match. To their left, and a bit behind them, Whitebeard and the Fleet Admiral seem to be trying to hold each other back from intervening anywhere. The Phoenix occasionally floats from one confrontation to another to deal third-degree burns and get his pound of flesh. Whitebeard's fight is so out of what Law can handle that it's laughable, and anyway the old man's going to die whatever Law or anyone does, so he makes the questionable decision of ignoring it. Instead he squints at the direction the most fire is coming from. The explosions produced by Fire Fist are impressive. They seem to have the XPLCT purpose of keeping Blackbeard from getting to a hand-to-hand range, scattered around Fire Fist in a loose semicircle. This close to the fight, the smoke makes it hard to see anything, doubly so to breathe. Law forces himself to inhale through his nose and breathe as shallowly as possible. The heat is bearable but not pleasant by any means. The ice Law is standing on is starting to melt, which is bad FING news. Fire Fist is, presumably enough, also standing on ice. The ice is probably melting even faster at the epicenter of the fires. Fire Fist apparently has a very pressing death wish. Straw Hat, Law rasps out, as a very unpleasant idea occurs to him. Is your brother even going to listen to you? I promised to save him. Straw Hat retorts, which Law can't help but notice isn't a FING answer. He still gets up, though. At this point he's too far in to turn back. Fire Fist is getting rescued whether he wants it or not. Straw Hat, remember the plan. He yells, and rooms a nearly dying man into a fight way above his level. If Fire Fist wants his brother alive, he's gonna have to cut his losses and run. The problem with Ace is people keep expecting him to run, explains Deuce, out of breath. But he's never going to do that, ever. There he trails off, struggling to come up with a word that isn't neurotic or obsessive or slightly FING insane. Captain has pride, volunteers Skull, managing to say the word in a slightly despairing manner. I'm going to kill this entire FING family, seethes Ivankov.
Okay, sadly the chapter is over, and if you enjoyed the video just leave a like, and subscribe with post notification, so when the next chapter is ready, you will be notified. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye.